You don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom.
No, I think that the guilt complex of the American white man is so profound until when you begin to analyze the real condition of the black man in America, instead of the American white man eliminating the causes that create that condition, he tries to cover it up by accusing his accusers of teaching hate. But actually, they're just exposing him for being responsible for what exists.
We have injected ourselves into the civil rights struggle, and we intend to expand it from the level of civil rights to the level of human rights. As long as you fight it on the level of civil rights, you're under Uncle Sam's jurisdiction. You're going to his court expecting him to correct the problem. He created the problem. He's the criminal. You don't take your case to the criminal, you take your criminal to court.
We feel that the problem, number one, of the black man in America is beyond America's ability to solve. It's a human problem, not an American problem or a Negro problem. And as a human problem or a world problem, we feel that it should be taken out of the jurisdiction of the United States government and the United States courts and taken into the United Nations in the same manner that the problems of the black man in South Africa, Angola, and other parts of the world, and even the way they're trying to bring the problems of the Jews in Russia into the United Nations because of violation of human rights. We believe that our problem is one not of violation of civil rights, but a violation of human rights.
At one time in our history, the area at 102 West 116th Street in Harlem, New York, where the Nation of Islam's Mosque number 7 was located. It was the hot spot, the function at the junction. Because of the presence of Nation of Islam members who were highly visible at this location, this was one of the safest city blocks in New York City. A much respected man named Brother Minister Malcolm headed up the mosque there. The Nation of Islam's reputation that commanded respect was attributed to the fearless Minister Malcolm, who was a man who said what he meant and meant what he said. And everyone knew it, even his enemies. This 6 DVD set is going to be an encyclopedia of information. You're going to hear from those who knew Malcolm, thought they knew Malcolm, those who loved him, and those who hated him. I'm going to show and prove how the Nation of Islam used Malcolm to build up its militant posture, only to fire him and then kill him. But before I go any further, I want to put up this disclaimer. The views, opinions, and actual facts expressed in this presentation are those of filmmaker Omar Shabazz and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by anyone else appearing in this 6 DVD production. And I'm going to be upfront with you. I cannot guarantee anyone that I'm going to narrate this documentary from beginning to end in a cool, calm manner. I could lose my temper, cuss like a sailor, and I might lift my desktop computer and throw it to the floor. I can't imagine anyone outside of Malcolm's family more angry than me about what happened to Malcolm and what his loss meant to our people. This film is going to be different from my previous work. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel by telling you what public school Malcolm went to. Instead, this project is going to be more like when you go to look for something in an encyclopedia. You turn to any page randomly and find something fascinating to learn about. Okay, let's get it on.
Whatever remnants of Malcolm's spirit when we came up to, when I first came up here, correct, back in the early 90s. It's not so much nowadays. Yeah. You know, I don't know what really directly to attribute that to, but I remember when I first came, it was just like, and it was kind of an addictive type of feeling. You know, I wanted to feel, and maybe it was me convincing myself that I was feeling this, but it was part of the allure initially for me. Right. to come to Harlem, particularly around the 125th Street area. And this was back in the days before Giuliani messed up everything down there, and there were people, vendors and everything, and it was a very eclectic place. You know what I mean?
125th Street where they ran the vendors off.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was really something at the time.
Yeah.
But I normally come up here every year for the book fair.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I'm here every year for the book fair. And the thing about that was this year, of course, they had the pandemic. We went out here, but I've never been this far uptown. I've done some research. I've seen videos. I've seen pictures. I've had a great desire to come up here every time I came into Harlem. But they used to be closed on Saturday. Now they're scheduled to be open, but of course they're not open. For one reason or the other. Minister Malcolm has been a great influence in my life personally as a man, just by his deeds. But a lot of people don't understand is that I was involved in the Nation of Islam at that time when Minister Malcolm was, when he was assassinated. But all we got was bad talk about Minister Malcolm. So we were like parents at that point. We just repeated what was said, but the minister was saying what the brother was saying. We didn't know Malcolm the man. And of all the agony and stuff that they put Minister Malcolm through, no one ever apologized to him, nor his family. Now, I've seen Minister Farrakhan talk loud and talk bad about Minister Malcolm years and years before he made that speech when he did it in, I think it was like 95, he did a lecture that Shabazz got involved in.
Okay,
One of the reasons why they had that big meeting up here.
Right.
But even then, he just apologized for his words, but he didn't apologize for his actions. He was very, very bitter and very, very mean and nasty when he talked about Minister Malcolm when he was amongst the Nation of Islam members. But when he got in front of the people in the Apollo Theater, you can hardly hear him talk. I said, he's not a tough guy. He was, he talked loud when he had that support. But Shabazz separated him from that meanness that he had, that mean streak.
Right.
But he never apologized. He never apologized, the nation never apologized. What really burned me up more so through my years of reading and studying Minister Malcolm is that they called him a hypocrite, but they never called him a liar. They never called him a liar. They never said he was a liar.
Right.
They said he was a hypocrite.
Right.
And then they went on to lie about him even being a hypocrite, because he wasn't hypocritical. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was hypocritical. We were taught in the Nation of Islam to abide by the laws that we're under.
Right.
And you can't have 6, 7 wives in the United States of America. You can't have that.
Exactly.
So if you're doing it and you say don't do it, then you're hypocritical.
Now let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
When did the wives become part of that narrative? I'm sorry.
Yes.
When did the wives actually, because I don't know how many people, I do remember hearing Malcolm mention something about them saying that if they were his wives, then they would be given these positions, exalted positions within the nation. But when did the wives, because I've heard some people say that in terms of the explanation, in terms of explaining away, the actions of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Correct.
That really didn't become a pronounced part of that narrative until after he passed away, to kind of really speak to that piece that Malcolm was saying.
It's a cover-up. It's always been a cover-up. I don't even know why Sister Tynetta would say that she was a wife. She was not. She was a girlfriend, or she was just somebody that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was sleeping with.
We call them jump-offs nowadays.
Well, side piece.
Exactly.
But Minister Farrakhan is still trying to cover up the actions of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And you just can't cover up wrong with wrong. So I always felt is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad should have spoke honestly, truly, to the people that supported him. From the very beginning. When the rumors first came out, he shouldn't have had nobody try to cover it up. He should have just went out and said, look, this is what I did. I'm human. This is me. This is me. I'm not saying do like I do. I'm saying you got to do better than I do.
Exactly. I think that he would have, to me, from a prestige point, he probably would have been bigger had he done that. Had he done something like that and said, well, listen, this is kind of a chink in my armor, and kind of explained it exactly the way that you did, and kind of just showed, exposed himself as a human, as opposed to the deity, which the common the prevailing thought process in the nation at the time had deified him to the point of, a divine, being.
Right. The only thing that I hold against Minister Malcolm, and I love and respect him, the only grudge I could ever pick a bone with him is when he tried to cover it up. He tried to go into the Bible and use Elijah as David. And, he told the messenger that he would, cover things up.
Right.
Because he loved him that much.
Right.
He told Louis Farrakhan, he told Fat Joe, Captain Joseph.
Right.
And the word got back that he was talking about it, but Minister Malcolm was trying to put a fire out before it got started. It was already started.
Right.
And he was trying to put it out before kerosene got on, or gasoline.
I got you.
And that's the only thing I hold against him. He should have just went on and just been straight up forward. Okay,
from the rip.
You made a mistake. Where do we go from here?
Could you tell us your purpose of being here in Providence for the second time?
The Muslims here in America who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have our annual convention in Chicago every year, and I'm traveling around the country for the purpose of seeing that the groups that are going by caravan are properly organized and properly informed.
In what year did you join the Nation of Islam, and what attracted you to them?
I joined the Nation of Islam under Minister Louis Farrakhan in 1981. His version of the Nation of Islam, I'm not going to really even say that it's the Nation of Islam, it's actually, in reality, the Final Call Incorporated. There is no Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam was destroyed in 1975. Actually, it was dismantled by the son of Elijah Muhammad in 1975. But I joined Minister Louis Farrakhan in 1981, right out of high school, and what attracted me to the Nation of Islam was the love. Not necessarily the religion, it was the love. I always questioned religion, but it was the love and the brotherhood that I saw in the Nation of Islam, the strength. I love to see the FOI with their bow ties marching, and they were strong, and the sisters in that pretty white. I love the MGT in that pretty white. Even to this day, I still love the Nation of Islam, those brothers and sisters. That's what attracted me to the Nation of Islam, because that was part of me. They were an example of the love I had in myself, and I saw that expressed when I was reading the books and watching the brothers and sisters of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Nation of Islam.
The majority of the Nation of Islam's rank-and-file followers were joining the organization without knowing anything about its origin and history. When Malcolm X convinced its leader, Elijah Muhammad, to participate in a nationally televised program called The Hate That Hate Produced, hosted by Mike Wallace and Louis Lomax, the airing of the show introduced white America to the Nation of Islam. The pros about it increased the membership of the group. The cons were that most whites would label the organization a hate group, and the Nation of Islam would blame Malcolm for the unwanted attention and accuse Malcolm of putting the religious group under the microscope of America's law enforcement. The fact of the matter is that the group threw itself into the radar decades before Malcolm had joined, when in the early 1930s, a member of the group committed a crime that put its founder, Master Farad, under arrest. Elijah Muhammad did not share with anyone outside of his immediate family the true ups and downs about the history of the group, and no one inside the group ever questioned Elijah Muhammad's seemingly endless supply of money that he was giving to his staff members to keep them afloat. Elijah Muhammad was paying Malcolm alone $1,000 a month. Where was this money coming from? All other ministers and staff were also getting a salary. The question must be asked, was pressure being placed on all rank-and-file members to sell Muhammad Speaks newspapers so the organization could have a front, a reason to explain the leader's great wealth? While Malcolm spent his 12 years in the organization, he would often hear rumors that the Nation of Islam was owned and remotely controlled by a rich white man named H.L. Hunt. Time would show and prove that Brother Malcolm never became seduced by the $1,000 a month Elijah Muhammad was lining his pockets with. Malcolm was only interested in standing up for our people and physically freeing them. And though Malcolm was positioned to lead, a man out front, it was interpreted by many in the Nation of Islam as a threat to their financial security. Many knew Malcolm was a man who didn't chase the dollar. And if Elijah Muhammad, who was very sickly, suddenly passed away, the monthly salary for many would come to a stop. That money coming in from H.L. Hunt would be used by Malcolm to arm the Fruit of Islam like a real army. Now a master plan to kick Malcolm out of the organization must be devised. This photograph, taken in the summer of 1963, that appears to show Mosque No. 7 members escorting Malcolm to his car, carrying his briefcase, kissing his ass, some might say, will all be short-lived. In a few months ahead, in December of 1963, Brother Malcolm will speak at a venue called the Manhattan Center in New York City, and it will be the very last time he will speak as a minister of the Nation of Islam. This whole thing is getting ready to get real funky now. And when Malcolm gets in more hot water and deeper in the doo-doo with the leadership in the Nation of Islam, the man that they said God came in the person of is not going to lift one bad-smelling, cunt-fucking middle finger to help Brother Malcolm. Instead, this man God will watch the escalating rumble between Elijah and Malcolm on his television set. While it's very true that the international white power structure were aggressively monitoring the Nation of Islam's every move, and Malcolm X specifically, for his outspoken militancy, the power structure also learned that internal feuding existed within the group that could be exploited by adding fuel to existing conflicts and could result in getting Elijah Muhammad's most serious and militant minister, Malcolm X, expelled from the organization. Malcolm's personal photographer, Robert L. Haggins, will give us a better understanding throughout this documentary.
No, sir. I was never a member of the Nation of Islam. And I can tell you why. In the beginning, I thought about becoming a member of the Nation of Islam. But I'm just not a joiner. I don't join things unless I take a long, hard look at it. Being a photographer, I had access to closed meetings. And a lot of brothers didn't like that. They resented the fact that I was not a Muslim. And at one point, I used to enter the temple without being searched. And they searched everybody. But on several occasions, I walked up and their brother said, okay, brother, and he moved aside and I walked right through. A lot of brothers resented that. A lot of people talked about it, say, who is this guy? I mean, he walks in, he's not a member, he's not a Muslim. Yet, when they meet him, they say, Assalamu alaikum, and he say, wa alaikum salam, and they accept him as if he was a Muslim. And that goes for all of the officials, even the messenger's family, Herbert, Akbar, all of them. They all embraced me and they all accepted me, and they knew I wasn't a Muslim. The only time that I had problems with that was when Malcolm had his paper begin to attract attention. Mr. Muhammad Speaks. Malcolm hired me to work for that paper. But the Muslims in Chicago realized how dangerous that paper could be, and they took it from Malcolm. They moved in from Chicago and took everything pertaining to that newspaper from Malcolm's house. The paper was being run and published in his basement. They took it from him. Now here's the rub. The negatives belong to me. And they were upset. They couldn't order me to give up my negatives the way they ordered all the other Muslims. They just ordered people. I heard rumors that they would go into your business and go in the cash register and all that kind of stuff. See, when I found out about things like that, there's no way in the world I want to join a religion that would have the power to come in my house. And on one occasion, Joseph came to my house, and I had company. I had my people there, and she came in, and she saw them standing there looking at her, and he started asking me questions about her and who she was. And I said, wait a minute, look, I don't want nobody in my business, man. That's my business. That's my woman. I don't want nobody questioning her or questioning me. You ain't come in my house, and I'm not a member now. Remember that. So don't come in here with that. So they didn't like that. So Chicago put pressure on Malcolm. They couldn't do nothing to me, but they could put pressure on Malcolm. They wanted my negatives. So I spoke to Earl about it, and Earl said they took mine. Well, Earl was a member of the nation, so they took his. But through Earl, I gave them my negatives, something I regret. I gave up, I guess, about 1,000 negatives. Pictures that have never been published. Pictures of Malcolm in private meetings with Elijah. I was the only photographer allowed to go upstairs and shoot pictures of the messenger. Nobody else could do that but me. And even at the Audubon Ballroom, there's a sign still on the walls, that at least it was there, no cameras allowed inside. So I had exclusive photographs. That's why these publishers, when they want pictures of Malcolm, they come to me, because they know that at one time I had all of the photographs. I had all the exclusive stuff. Pictures of Muhammad with Malcolm, pictures with private meetings, all kinds of stuff. And I gave all of that up, the original negatives, and I don't have copies. And I just think about it sometimes, how stupid it was for me to give up my negatives. But if I hadn't given them up, then I wouldn't have been around to get these other pictures. I wouldn't have them, because they would have said right away, well, this guy, he's not with us, so let's take it away from him. And that's what they wanted to do. So that's why I gave up my negatives to Malcolm. Malcolm has never really forgotten about that. He tried to make it up to me on so many different occasions.
Right.
The brothers inside the mosque killed James Shabazz.
Really? Now, speak to that. Just speak to that. We're talking Son of Thunder, James Shabazz, the minister, number 25.
The brothers inside of the mosque killed James Shabazz.
Do you know exactly what happened, or?
They was trying to take the mosque over. They wanted to outpower James Shabazz. And the only way to do that, they was trying to bring in a new world order of Islam. And they were bank robbing.
There we go.
They was extorting people. They were doing the very same thing they were doing in Philadelphia. But James Shabazz had enough, and he wasn't going to go with it any further. And then what happened, they said, well, James got to go. And they murdered him. And again, Minister Farrakhan did a lecture shortly after that and said, he's a cover-up artist.
Right.
So if you ever get in trouble, call Louis. He'll cover up for you.
Wow.
But he did a lecture right after that and said that when a person kills a Muslim, it is our duty as a Muslim to go out and find them and kill them. And he said that they better hope that the police find who they are before we do. And the whole time he knew who they were.
Somebody like John Ali, did you ever meet him or ever around him?
I never met John Ali.
Was there anything did you hear anything about him at the time?
He was ruthless.
Right.
John Ali truly was a snake.
Right.
Not of the graphic kind, but he was a snake.
Right.
a real live professional snake.
Okay.
He was a demon and a devil. He was wicked.
Right.
He was wicked. John Ali was about John Ali and what he could put in his pockets. That's what he was about.
Right, right. Now, I remember he was from Philly. As a matter of fact, I think his wife's brother was on the police force or something like that. And then he admitted himself he tried to be in the FBI.
He actually worked for the FBI.
Yeah.
Well, he worked for the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah.
That didn't make him an agent, but he was.
Yeah, of course.
But he was a snitch.
Yeah. So,
he was a snake.
I think he tried to be an official agent, and according to him, he got turned down by Hoover himself.
That's because he wasn't given enough information. He wasn't given enough information. And that was the main thing. His issues were, again, another brother that wanted to be in power and would do anything he could to be in power.
Yeah. And I guess the conventional wisdom is that he was probably the main architect or one of the main architects of Malcolm's assassination. You know what I mean?
He was greatly involved because he wanted the recognition. He wanted the nation's recognition of being the man. Once Elijah Muhammad Jr. put the word out, then John Ali wanted to be the man. If he wasn't such a coward, he would have been there to pull the trigger. Just think how booming this was.
Yeah, it was.
You cannot even begin to fathom. This was like 125th Street wide open.
Okay.
Right here. This whole area through here.
Right.
I mean, it's a blessing to see that they still have some businesses. It's wonderful to see that they still have, the apartment. I mean, this is really good in the school. But this is just an offshot of all of what Minister Malcolm started.
I've been hearing, or I have heard that subsequent to the assassination, of course, the mosque was burned.
Correct.
As far as who was responsible for it, it depends on who you ask.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know who to believe.
Right.
I don't know who to believe. Right. There's from what I've heard and what I've read and heard people say, there's three entities principally that could have had
something to do with it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Of course, the obvious perpetrators. Most people would say, well, it was Malcolm's folks that did
Correct.
it. And then you have those that say that it was the FBI and their bagmen that did it. And then, and there was people that said there were, folks within the nation that might have done it. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I can give you not first-hand knowledge.
Right.
I can give you second-hand knowledge.
Okay.
They weren't people that was directly involved with Minister Malcolm.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But they were supporters of Minister Malcolm.
I got you.
They were like they was at the meeting.
I got you. I hear you.
They would attend and support him.
I got you.
And if that's the way they want to treat him, you burn them niggas out.
Okay, all right. And I mean,
that's what happened.
Actually that makes sense, and it kind of ties everything in because
that's what happened.
I mean, it's also pretty, within the Malcolm circle, it's also pretty well known that Malcolm's. We were talking about Bumpy Johnson earlier.
Right.
That because of their affiliation, that Bumpy offered him, a measure or a level of protection, and Malcolm, unfortunately, he turned him down.
No, what Bumpy Johnson offered Minister Malcolm was, I'll take care of that.
Yeah.
And that would have meant everybody that was in number 7, you just
wouldn't see anymore.
It's all over.
Yeah, right.
Just,
Sleep with the
that
fishes.
simple.
Yeah, I got you.
And Minister Malcolm did not want that.
Yeah.
He wanted to be able to try to settle it, without black people killing. He never wanted black people fighting each other.
That's always bothered me, the fact that he didn't get credit for trying to
diffuse.
Trying to reconcile. And he almost in every, especially early on, almost in every public utterance, you know, it was obvious that he didn't want any problem.
No.
He didn't want any problem. He said, I believe he said, had they left me alone, I never would have said anything.
Right. But they wouldn't leave him alone, and they kept bothering, they kept pressuring him, and that was the thing.
Right.
You know, they kept constantly pressuring him into, you know, making decisions. And then after they wore him down, he got tired.
Right.
Once you're mentally tired, you know, we just start reacting.
Exactly.
And then that caused an issue. That caused issues. Once we physically worn down, we're mentally screwed up, so we start making just harsh, quick judgments, and things like that. But he never resorted to violence.
And that's another thing. You know, when you listen to the nation, the people from the nation who promote the nation, and they pretty much parrot those same lines that we've been hearing for all these years, they never acknowledge the fact, or they'll say Malcolm talked bad, he was talking greasy about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He never threatened, from everything that I've seen and heard, he never threatened. Not only did he not threaten the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he didn't threaten anybody in the nation. He never threatened anybody.
Never said a threatening word to no one at all.
Now I can't speak to what his circle did, but I'm sure he wouldn't have approved of it. If it did happen, he wouldn't have approved of it.
No.
So, you know, that's always kind of bothered me too. It's all because they always conveniently leave that out of their narrative because they want to paint him in such a negative light.
Correct.
And say, well, he talked bad about him or he exposed his domestic life. Okay. You know, my thing is, all right, I'll give you that. He did that, but he had to die. I keep going back to that basic question, like, why did he have to die?
Power.
You know what I mean? They
didn't want him in power.
I have heard nobody answer that with any kind of sensible, cogent explanation.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a problem, and they will never have credibility until you can. Well, you can't answer it because there's no logical way to answer it. There's no human way you can answer that.
Right. They just wanted power, and he was in the way.
And rather than own up to that, they'll keep spinning that shame, tired narrative, and it's like, man, that's corny. It's corny.
It's old. Him the villain every time.
And, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Oh, he burned down his own house. And speaking of his house, did you ever hear of anything in terms of who was responsible for that? Have you ever heard anything?
Oh, that was a Negro out of number 7 responsible. Joe was involved in that.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Joe was involved in that.
Now, did they ever talk about that? And were you ever privy to any?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No. But Joe was involved in that.
Wow.
That was his call, in fact.
Yeah, I do remember his brother saying that if something like that happened, it couldn't have happened without him, without his approval, and without his you know what I mean, his stamp of approval on that.
And Alvin, his brother,
Farrakhan's
brother,
okay,
was a spy because he always constantly watched the house to see what was going on. So they knew all the coming and goings of what was going on.
Because he, of course, lived across the street from Malcolm.
Or down the street or something.
Down the street from Malcolm. Okay, okay.
But he was a spy, and he was never a big brother in the nation. He was never big, famous, or recognized. You know, he was just another brother. You know, another musician. He was a musician. He played piano.
Right. Okay. Okay.
He didn't play piano.
Yeah.
But he was just Brother Alvin. You know.
Yeah. Now, how about Akbar? I guess his name was Larry Prescott at the time.
Larry. Akbar didn't get credentials and famous until Minister Farrakhan.
Okay. So he pretty much rode that in.
Yeah. And then the fact that he sent him into Africa.
Right.
That's when Akbar got his name and his power.
Yeah.
But Akbar was always
and a certain degree of infamy too, because I think he got into he had some issues, some legal issues surrounding some of the stuff that he was doing, some of his dealings.
Well,
from what I understand,
he's a larcenist. If you're a crook, you're a crook. You know, that's like letting Jesse James guard the bank.
Right.
You know, he'll guard it for a while, but sooner or later, you got to get his off the top.
I hear you.
You know, this town lost a great warrior in Minister Malcolm. They lost a modern day warrior in Dr. Khalid. And they keep constantly keeping people out of the picture that can make a difference. I still believe that Dr. Khalid was murdered, not in the sense that he was assassinated like Minister Malcolm, but he was murdered, inside job, because he was really no nonsense. And they kept pitting him back and forth against Minister Farrakhan. The first two years you couldn't get him to say a bad word about Minister Farrakhan. He wouldn't say nothing. He would just say nothing. We had the opportunity to bring him into the city of Harrisburg to do a lecture 30 years later, because we followed up on that theme, because Malcolm and Muhammad, and we did Farrakhan and Khalid, and you couldn't get a bad word out of him. But you could see that it was hurting him not to say a bad word. And he was a brother that was a real strong, he was a warrior, you know. In fact, he wanted to mix it up. He didn't want to do anything without the approval of the nation, but at some point he had to draw a line as, look, I got to do this, you know, because this is me. His mistake was, the mistake that he made was the Million Youth March. That was the mistake that he made. Yeah. Because that's why they got rid of Clarence, 13X. Because he went after the youth, the 5%ers.
Talk to me about Clarence 13X.
Clarence 13X was one of the most brilliant brothers that ever stepped inside the Nation of Islam. He was far more superior mentally than all the brothers in Chicago.
Right, okay.
And he was the man here in New York City. His intelligence was he was just so smart. He was a major mathematician mentally, and he figured out the sciences of numbers. When he started the 5%ers, he gave the student enrollment lessons to youth off the street, the common everyday kid. And it was just like they pick up nursery rhymes. They picked up actual facts. You know, the sun is 93 million miles away. The moon is 127,000 away. The sun burns at this temperature. You know, the earth revolves around this. Those are all numbers that he put together.
But were they the same? Because when you, obviously I know absolutely nothing about the 5%ers.
Correct.
But I know when I listen to them talk, they talk about the lessons. Now,
oh, yes.
Were they the same lessons that were being taught in the nation?
Yes. And we had to memorize those lessons, and we could be stopped anytime by a captain or a lieutenant or a minister. And they would ask you what was General Order number 8. And you'd have to say, to take charge of this post and all mouse property in view. In case of disorder or something, give the alarm. They'd have to cut my head off. But yeah, brother, we had to memorize all that. And it was important that you knew that. And that's how we were tested.
And Brother Clarence had
a
talent for attracting.
He had a talent.
Like a Pied Piper for young folks.
He had a talent, and they would put that in rhymes and stuff. Ice Cube, Flavor Flav from right over here in Long Island, Kenneth Supreme. These brothers were geniuses because they learned the lessons in a rhythmic fashion. Minister Malcolm always said this, and he meant this when he always said this. He was talking about Clarence 13X. He said the strength of the Nation of Islam is in the streets. It's not in the mosque, it's in the streets. Minister Farrakhan made the same statement, but it was in reference to the people in the street that knew what was going on. So the strength really is in the streets. They're just not the suit and ties. You know, they didn't have the suit and ties on. They wasn't selling bean pies. They wasn't standing on the corner selling the Muhammad Speaks newspaper or the Final Call. They were in the streets. The knowledge was in the streets because Clarence brought it out here in the street, and they murdered him. They gunned him down. That was an inside job. That was an inside job. You know, he had issues, but he was honest about it. I like to gamble. He was honest about that. I like to smoke marijuana. He was honest about that. At one time, all the musicians smoked marijuana. You know, he came up in a time period when he hung with the musicians. So in Rome, you do like the Romans do. So he would smoke marijuana and he gambled. But for them to gun him down, going into an apartment, and they try to say it was his girlfriend's apartment, but he knew that they was following him. He saw them following him, so he was trying to get into a building for safety. Okay. And they caught him in the hallway and gunned him down. That was a New York job. That was a New York job.
But, you know, what I hear or what I've heard is that the father, I guess they call him the father.
Yes, yes.
He had a great deal of respect and admiration for Malcolm.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And Minister Farrakhan.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Everybody in the nation respected Brother Clarence. I'm telling you, he was a genius. He just wasn't no ordinary, everyday brother.
It's interesting. Let me ask you about another guy who oddly enough, has been, and I guess the historical record bears it out, Lonnie X. You know anything about him?
Lonnie Shabazz?
Yeah, Lonnie Shabazz.
Very little.
Yeah.
Very little.
He apparently, you know, obviously he was in the halls of academia, and
right.
he had many prestigious, you know, awards and accolades attributed to him for his mathematical prowess.
Right.
You know. Yeah.
But other than what is actually documented, you know. Right. But he was definitely a numbers guy.
Right.
You know.
But you know, at the same time, from what I've read and heard, he actually too was one of those voices that came out, you know, very vehemently against Malcolm at that time. And he was, I guess, at that time. And then you can clear this up because they said, you know, at one time Malcolm had a group of ministers under him, these student ministers, of which Benjamin, I guess, was one. Even Farrakhan probably was one. Akbar, I think they said Lonnie. People that were under him that, you know, most of them ended up being those voices of venom that called for, you know.
Right. Well, don't forget. Once they start killing, and they murdered Minister Malcolm, and they knew that was coming down, they even made his own brother turn against him.
Yeah.
His own brother could have said, "Well, I don't have anything. I'm not going to say anything about my brother." Right. You know, but they made you disown brothers.
Well, I mean, I've heard from a pretty good source that, you know, knew Wolford very well. He said that you know, that they were in the nation. They were still officials in the nation. They had families and everything. These are the type of things that went into their thinking.
Oh yeah, you had to think about everything.
You're making these statements and reading these statements. These prepared statements from John Ali. You know, that was, you know, calling Malcolm crazy, this, that, and the other. And a third, and matter of fact, I think was it Reginald or Filbert that read the statement and said that,
Filbert.
You know, insanity runs in my tantamount to insanity runs in my family, and Malcolm's another, you know, just another
victim of which was wrong.
That's crazy.
Minister Malcolm never did anything but good for black people. He never did anything but good for black people. He once made a statement was that the Nation of Islam was a beautiful place and a beautiful thing until niggas got in it.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's what happened. Niggas got in it. And if he would have been in control, there would have been no more of that luxury, all that diamonds and pearls and stuff like that. Right. He would have broke all that stuff up. At one time, MGT couldn't buy a uniform unless she bought it from from Sister, from Clara.
Sharif,
was it Ethel or?
Ethel Sharif,
yeah. You had to buy the outfit from her. You couldn't get it no place else, or it wasn't accepted. Yeah. You know, you could even make your own.
We call that monopoly.
It was a monopoly. It was a monopoly. I mean, you had to get the FYI uniform. You had to get it from Chicago. You know, your pins on your lapel. You had to get it from Chicago. Right. You know, they had monopoly on it. All your books, you had to get them from Chicago. You know, everything came out of Chicago, so they could make sure they had that money. And that's what the thing was. It was the money. And the money ruined the nation. It ruined it.
Yeah. As it tends to do, you know. Yeah, that's a good thing. Let me ask you a question. As far as the assassination team itself.
Yes.
And what you know about that.
Right.
Did you know, I know you said you came in 65, and you were in the general area. Basically, you said you were in Philly, right?
I was under Philadelphia. Yes.
Did you know any of those guys, or Any of those names?
No.
Any of those names?
No. Nope.
Ever come across? Okay.
Didn't know any of them. Not one of them. I wouldn't know them if I would have passed them in the mosque.
Right.
You know. But all the murderers out of Philadelphia, out of number 12, knew all them Negroes.
Wow.
All them, you know.
I'm Omar Shabazz. I taught myself filmmaking because it allows me a chance to say things the way I want to say them without too many restrictions. Are we making dumb decisions like when someone in a horror movie invites the monster to come get them? And on the other hand, it's just as bad when you do nothing to stop the hand of the oppressor and you think you're at where you're supposed to be. That's nothing but agreeing on a settlement. And then a commercial came up, and the narrator asked, if you're living on borrowed time, do you have to return it? If God came right now to exact revenge on black people's enemies, I'd have to ask him in an angry tone, what took you so long? But I've heard it said that God only helps those who help themselves. I'd have to admit, that might disqualify me. If I'm honest with myself, I have to ask myself, what did I do personally to stop the hand of my oppressor? Once someone hurts you, they've already demonstrated their ability to do it again. The menu of options to that hurt should be narrow and direct. You see, I grew up thinking that all white people were insensitive to the hell black people were catching. I figured if they were in charge, why aren't they stopping racism? I didn't see anyone expressing with any empathy about the plight of black folks, and I wondered if any of them had the humanity to even cry. Because as far as I could see, white supremacy was doing as it usually does, sitting in its favorite easy chair, slowly and casually filing down its fingernails, giving itself a deluxe manicure. And because of black people's inactivity, the automatic sleep function kicked in every 10 minutes, because the demand for human rights wasn't aggressively being fought. No one remembered what Malcolm told them. Power doesn't respond to nothing else but more power. Not a verbatim quote, but that's close enough. At first, I thought they were fighting, but they were uniting. That concrete foundation playground was the perfect setting for romance. And then they went on to an aerobatic courtship. How do I know? I witnessed this aerial conception. I went to the religious, and essentially everyone was saying the same thing. There's nothing I could do. The Creator has a master plan. Right now, he's doing the rope-a-dope and waiting for the devil to get tired, punching his arms out. And then the knockout blow will be delivered. I admire Malcolm's brave, uncompromising fight for black people, and his pointing out the hypocrisy of white people who consistently lie about their belief in the equality of man. How Malcolm never hid behind religion that many of us use for our inaction, and how we are always trying to convince other people to lay back, because ultimately, one day, God will come and avenge and single out the mistreaters. What would Malcolm say to me if he could? I think he would say, you should have formed a militant group, an army. Why didn't you? I tried. You wasted your chance to liberate yourself and your people. You made no plans. You squandered. He may not say this at all, but he would have the right to say.
What makes Malcolm X a diamond among men?
What makes Malcolm X a diamond among men? For me, I saw Malcolm like myself, so sincere, so real, so honest. And I think many people can relate to Malcolm, even if they may not like his philosophy or ideology, but they know that he's real. And he's somebody that means nobody any harm. He's someone that just simply seeks justice. And not only justice for soul brothers and sisters, but he's looking out overall, in my eyes, in humanity itself. He's a diamond among men because he's willing to sacrifice himself for what is in the best interest of humanity. And that's very rare among human beings, especially in our day and time in 2021. He's an inspiration for me. He's an example for me. And if I could even come anywhere close to a Malcolm X, I would be so proud and honored. To even say that I'm like a Malcolm X, that would be so great. He's a diamond among men because he's precious, because he's someone that was so valuable to us. And when we lost him, and because of his value, we are suffering right now due to his absence.
Black folks indeed are suffering due to Malcolm's absence. Malcolm was a healer, a medicine man, a doctor who wanted to save our people. Malcolm had announced shortly before his assassination that he was going to take black people's case into the World Court, the United Nations, charging Uncle Sam with violating the human rights of our people. We know with his unique brilliance, courage, top-flight articulation, and dynamic personality, he would have been victorious in court and forced white America to start repairing the damage it had done to black people. It's no wonder that black-on-black crime is now out of control. This is expected with a people who never learned the true value of themselves.
10 shootings, 5 people dead. That's the word on gun violence over the weekend in New York City. 2 teens among those killed. Our Glenn Chuck joins us live with more. Glenn.
And actually, tragically, we've heard of a third teenager now that was killed, Susan, 16-year-old Ramon Gil Medrano in the backseat of a livery car here in the Mount Hope section of the Bronx last night about 11:30 when 2 shooters pull up on scooters and start firing through the window, hitting the boy in the head and his chest and killed him, and then they fled the scene. Now, that's in addition to 13-year-old Jerron Elliott being gunned down, also gang-related, a shooting outside a restaurant in the Belmont section of the Bronx here yesterday afternoon. Police still looking for that shooter as well. And there was a 19-year-old man who was killed Sunday in St. Albans, Queens. So that's 3 teenagers. The loss of young people is certainly quite upsetting, for sure.
Another violent night in New York City. At least 10 people were shot, 3 died. Most of the incidents happened in a span of just an hour, including a 35-year-old man who was fatally shot when a fight broke out at a barbecue in Bushwick. Also a 23-year-old who was killed following a gunfire at the Marlboro Houses in Gravesend. So far, no arrests in any of the incidents.
And the NYPD is also releasing security camera footage of at least 2 suspects who allegedly have been riding around on a scooter and robbing people. First incident on June 7th in Washington Heights. 17-year-old girl was robbed of her necklace at gunpoint, according to authorities. There have been at least 3 more incidents in Queens and the Bronx. The surveillance video is posted at 1010wins.com.
There was a basketball tournament last night at the normally quiet Amsterdam houses on the Upper West Side right near Lincoln Center, but that quiet was shattered by gunfire just before 9 o'clock.
There was a subway brawl on a D train in Washington Heights. 1 person was slashed, 2 others were punched. All were believed to have been drunk. And then a man was slashed on 86th Street on the Upper East Side. The attacker got away. Finally, in East New York, a man allegedly stabbed his roommate and killed him. That happened in the Spring Creek Towers. He was taken into custody and brought for a psychiatric evaluation.
I'm sure if a global survey was taken, many people in this world would say that black people are an angry, hostile, dangerous, and violent people. The question is why would they describe us like this? How did we get this way? Is this inherent behavior? Is it in our DNA? Has a scientific study been conducted? If this remarkable, extraordinary behavior pattern is exclusive to black people, I'm willing to bet that Malcolm would bring this up in his opening statement in court and would agree with many people about black people's current phenomenal state of violence. And he would prove our violent behavior was learned due to the ill treatment forced on us. And any people forced to live in harsh conditions are bound to turn on each other. Malcolm would have easily won his case, and the oppressive white power structure would have been embarrassed. Reparations would have started. I could hear Malcolm now saying, since you all agree that we are damaged people, give us what we need to fix ourselves. Or as the expression goes, put your money where your mouth is. You see what I mean? It would have been an open and shut case. When the symbolic wig-wearing judges of British colonialism opened their ears to hear Malcolm's brilliant opening statement proving that black folks got universally jerked around, even the tightest fitting wigs would have been twisted and flipped.
You know, the thing about Minister Malcolm and the fact of his demise, we can see the effect of it. It's like we're in a society now that, and we're right here, we're on ground zero. And this is where the bomb went off at after they erased Minister Malcolm. It took a while for you to see the total effect of it, but you can see the total effect of it. And everybody that's walking around now, they're in a doldrum. Minister Malcolm used to say that if you leave the nation, you go back to sleep. They sleep. You know, they're literally sleep. You know, my thing is, how can the Nation of Islam, which is supposed to be so powerful and so great, have so much hunger and black folks have so little when we gave so much? You know, even if they were like a church that has programs that give to a family when the family can't do for self. When Minister Malcolm was murdered, their responsibility was still to take care of Sister Betty and her children. That was their responsibility. But they didn't. They didn't do anything. They left her out on her own. You know, they left her on her own. Yeah, to struggle and pray that she died. Pray that she died. Had Minister Malcolm had any sons, it would have been a different story. Because the Negroes are so sick and silly that if they'd had a male child, they'd have to kill him. You know, just like they did with the Hanafi Muslims. They had to kill all the men children. You know, that was their goal, you know, because they felt it was bred in you to do the stuff that they did or what they wanted. So they would have murdered everybody.
To your larger point, I feel like that, and people, they might think I'm crazy, I feel like every time I see one of those young brothers or sisters being put in cuffs and in a perp walk into the paddy wagon, I feel like it's almost a direct result of Malcolm being off the scene.
Well,
I think he had that kind of sway over people. Like I'm not saying he could have, eliminated criminality. I'm not saying. I'm just saying that there was so much power in his words and in his presence that there was a lot of people who heard him and were moved by his words, moved to be better people. I consider myself an example of that.
Let me say this. When Minister Malcolm was living, there was no crime in the area we just walked out of because of his presence. Had he had the ability to stretch his whole program out, it would have had a great effect on black people. And first of all,
that's exactly
more so, we would have had a bigger effect on each other. Because if you see Brother George doing something wrong, you and Brother Omar check Brother George, pull his coattail, if necessary, get him by the shoulder and say, look, we got to do this like this. Right. When we was in the Nation of Islam, one of the things that kept us going is that they said that the end of the world is going to be in 1970. They said the end of the white world is going to be in 1970. Anything you want in 1970, you just go tell the white man, give me that, and he'll just give it to you, because this world's going to end. And as children, as young people, 5 years prior to that, we believe that. So we look forward to 1970. And then when things didn't happen in 1970, and they started telling you this right after they murdered Minister Malcolm, to give the youth another thing to look forward to, which gets you away from dwelling on the fact that Minister Malcolm was assassinated or murdered, and now you're thinking about in 1970, you better go tell the white man, I want this, I want that. Give me this, give me that. Yeah. We were conned, you know, into believing into a dream. They always constantly talked about Dr. King and his dream, but we were bigger dreamers than Dr. King. He only had one dream, you know, and everything that the Nation of Islam did was a dream. It was all sleight of hand. It was all, you know, this is how this is going to be. You know, we went for our brother, we went for ourselves, that all went out the window after Minister Malcolm. After Minister Malcolm left, it was a free-for-all.
And it was basically a mad grab for cash.
Oh, yeah. It was about the money. It was about the money. It was about how much money they could generate, how much money they could make, how much money they could have, you know, how good they could look. Captain Joseph he used to drive an old raggedy station wagon to moth meetings. But then he would park his car on a side street and then get in his real car and go home. You know, he used the station wagon because he didn't want nobody to know how well he was living. Captain Joseph was living well. He was living high on the cow, almost said high on the hog. But, and he was a hog eater.
But, yeah, now I have heard that. I've heard rumblings of that he actually, you know, partook of the swine.
Oh yeah, he was a hog eater and a cigar smoker. Oh yeah.
Eating swine flesh was a no-no if you were a member of the Nation of Islam. It was taboo. Black folks who loved pork chops, hog maws, pig feet, and a bottle of beer wouldn't dream of joining the Nation of Islam because they taught so hard against eating it, because it was proven the meat was saturated with worms. Pork meat had a distinct smell to it, and Captain Joseph reeked of the smell. Even as a captain in the Nation of Islam, he loved some hog. It said, "You are what you eat." Hog eaters behaved a certain way, always quarrelsome, disobedient, never in agreement with the flow, deliberately contrary. It's no wonder Captain Joseph always gave Malcolm a rough time. We are in the year 2023, and as things in this world worsen for our people, they're going to get real angry when they discover had Malcolm made it into the United Nations to bring the international power structure to its knees, forcing it to do the right thing by our people, our angry people are going to want to know who among us betrayed Malcolm. And if you are one of those who helped destroy Malcolm and is still alive, and you can be found, that's going to be your ass. And those who died, who are laying in cemeteries and thought they got away with it, the people are going to snatch their treacherous traitor corpses out of their grave and use their bones as drumsticks to beat on their drums in triumph, in celebration, for payback will be a bitch. To the living backstabbers and traitors, your best bet is to get cremated. You see, this is way beyond what documents, researchers, historians, scholars, and filmmakers get wrong. What date they got wrong, the wrong photo they used, or what word they misspelled in their research. The question that should be on the table, and foremost, was the Nation of Islam, was the leadership of the Nation of Islam bootlicking sellout Uncle Tom traitors? All else is nothing but smoke and mirrors, sleight of hand, and deflecting. Only a month passed by. after Malcolm's political assassination, when these three men were photographed at a special dinner, hamming it up to show gratitude to a top salesman who sold Muhammad Speaks newspaper. What's really interesting is that this event took place at Muhammad's Mosque number 7B in Corona, Queens, a sister mosque to the large Harlem Mosque. 7B was less than 10 minutes by car where Malcolm used to live. Also interesting is that the Nation of Islam ceased using the Audubon Ballroom for their banquets.
He's the only assassin, you know, that was arrested at the scene.
This guy?
Yeah, this is Taalik Ibn'rad. You know, he later came, you know, to regret, you know, the role that he played in the assassination of Malcolm, you know, and he's the one who committed himself to an affidavit, you know, with the attorney William Kunstler, striving to get help to get Norman Butler and Thomas Johnson off. They weren't connected to the scene of the assassination at all.
Okay.
You know, and he had like an allegiance, and he kept it quiet for almost 10 years after the assassination, until, you know, Elijah Muhammad passed away and the nation, you know, turned, you know, to basically Orthodox Islam. He felt that he had the allegiance that he showed to not wanting, you know, Elijah Muhammad to be portrayed as, you know, anything other than divine and the nation. He felt that he had did his job and he held it down for the nation, basically. Okay. And it was at that point that he cooperated to tell the truth on the assassination team, the names to the best of his memory, and who they really were, you know, to tell the truth about, you know, the forces that took Malcolm's life, and to help to exonerate Norman Butler and Thomas Johnson at the time, and to reopen the case. And, you know, the powers that be, you know, had no real interest in reopening the case on Malcolm's assassination. You know?
Well, some of them came from Mosque 25 in Newark, right?
Yeah. Taalik Ibn'rad came from Newark, New Jersey, to Mosque 25, and I believe the whole assassination team, you know, according to him, came from Newark, Mosque 25.
But not
these were New York Muslims.
Right.
And the whole thing, you know, was said that these guys was high profile.
Okay.
And if they had attempted to go into the Audubon Ballroom to get Malcolm, that they would have been spotted from the door.
Right away, right.
You know, you have Malcolm's assistant minister, Benjamin Karim, who warmed up for Malcolm for more than 30 minutes, you know, before Malcolm came out and was gunned down. He said that while he was delivering his speech, he was scanning the audience. You know, and he never saw, you know, he would have spotted, you know, Norman Butler or Thomas Johnson.
And this is the Temple 25, right?
Yeah, that's the old temple of Newark, Mosque 25.
Oh, okay.
You know? Yeah, we need to, it would be interesting to go out, you know, there to, you know, see this, you know, for ourselves.
Yeah. It's still in operation?
No, it looks to be, you know, as if it's on its way to being condemned from what the picture looks like.
It does look pretty bad.
Yeah. So, you know, it would be interesting for us to take a trip out there to see what the status and state of it is, you know. So, you know, I don't have any particular love, you know, for Taalik Ibn'rad. But I have to admit that I have more of a respect, you know, for Taalik Ibn'rad, you know, as the assassin who admitted, you know, I mean, he was caught at the scene of the crime.
Okay.
But he expressed his regret. You know, he said that at the time he believed that Malcolm was a hypocrite and, you know, that he was slandering, you know, Elijah Muhammad, and he felt that, you know, he was the type of brother that, you know, was compelled to actually not just talk about, you know, his faith, but to do whatever he needed to do to defend his faith. Right. So he said that he believed that those who recruited him to the assassination team, they knew that about him, you know, that he was the type of person that would stand up, you know, if needed to be. And he stood up. He stood up, he committed the assassination, and he expressed that he later came to regret his role, that at the time he felt that Malcolm was wrong, but he said, you know, he quoted Malcolm, that Malcolm used to say, time will tell, you know, about a lot of the things that, you know, that we're pondering upon. Time will tell. In actuality, it's only because, you know, Taalik strived to get these other two brothers, you know, who were arrested, you know, a week and a half after Malcolm's killing on February 21st, 1965, who wasn't caught at the scene like he was. It's only through him striving to exonerate them and to tell the truth about the actual assassination plot that we even have names, you know, of who the real team was. You know, if he would have kept his mouth shut, and, you know, we would never know any of the workings of, you know, the assassination team, you know, where they came from and things of that nature, you know. So when I try to have more respect, you know, for his contrition, you know, his stated, you know, contrition that he feels bad about it. You know, he came to say that Malcolm, you know, used to say time will tell. And he thought at the time that Malcolm was wrong, but he said in weighing things in the balance, he's come to realize that Malcolm was right about a lot of things, you know. So, yeah, you know, as opposed to some other people who still strive to slander Malcolm, you know, and still strive to, you know, even though we're 55 years later, you know, they're still holding a grudge, you know, against basically a good man, you know. So I have a lot more respect for Taalik, you know, than those who are still caught up in that cycle of blaming Malcolm for his own assassination. Go ahead, brother.
But Taalik, he really didn't know Malcolm personally because he was from Newark, correct?
Correct.
As opposed to the other two guys.
Yeah, they definitely knew Malcolm.
Right.
Thomas Johnson, you know, he was on, I believe at one point on Malcolm's security team.
Right.
And I believe also he stated that he used to bring groceries and things of that nature to Malcolm's house. You know, they had a setup where they would provide for the minister for his, you know, wherewithal, you know, in his domestic life. And so at one point, he carried those types of actions out. You know?
And Malcolm, did he ever go to Temple 25, Malcolm?
I'm almost absolutely sure, you know, that Malcolm, you know, as the ranking minister, not only in Mosque number 7,
National spokesman.
National spokesman. I'm also and someone who has been at the forefront at that time of developing most of the mosques, you know, in the Nation of Islam. I'm almost certain that he went to Newark, Mosque 25.
But that doesn't mean that Temple number 25 wasn't in competition with Temple number 7. I mean, that's the nature of our society.
Yeah, it's the nature of our society, and I believe, you know, from my studies, it's also it was a healthy competition was encouraged between the mosques, you know, to see who was the one who sold the most, you know, papers and, you know, and things of that nature. So they would be in competition, you know. It was supposed to be a friendly competition, you know, to spur them on to try to be the top selling, you know, mosques, you know, in the nation.
some of the people that are still in the Nation of Islam, they feel that the white man did it, right? Or the FBI did it, or CIA, or...
Well, you know, we got to remember that this goes back 55 years.
Right.
And so a lot of, you know, the people who were alive at the time, you know, you have some who are still alive, but a great number, you know, of them have passed on, you know. And a lot of the younger people, like even myself, admittedly, I obviously wasn't alive.
Right.
You know, as someone who considers his life was saved, you know, by the story of Malcolm X, you know, by his actions, by his philosophy, through his exploits, his legacy. As I began to read the autobiography of Malcolm, these are books from my personal collection, you know, of books on Malcolm. You know, most of the things that I'm speaking of came through my personal study. So I met many of Malcolm's contemporaries, you know, and I can't even really say how blessed I was, you know, to be able to meet, you know, people who knew Malcolm and was able to give me firsthand accounts of their memories of Malcolm, both within the nation and out of the nation, you know, and his attempts to organize his Muslim Mosque Incorporated and his organization of Afro-American Unity, you know. So, you know, I have an organic connection through that to believing that I know what I'm talking about when I talk about, you know, the lives and times of Malcolm X, you know, through my personal studies again, and also through being able to break bread and build with former Fruit of Islam that came out of the nation with Malcolm, former, you know, sisters, former, you know, people who were in his organization of Afro-American Unity, like Brother Herman Ferguson, you know, who I believe was connected to the educational arm or committee of what the Organization of Afro-American Unity was striving to put together as a program for black people, you know. So, yeah, I feel very blessed and very honored, man, to not only have been connected to Brother Malcolm as a spiritual father, so to speak, but also to have met many of his contemporaries before they passed on. And most of them have passed on now. This was in the early 90s that I met these individuals who formed the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee. And they formed the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee to give the real story, according to them, on Malcolm X and what he was striving to do through his Muslim Mosque Incorporated, an organization of Afro-American Unity. They were very, they had a great anxiety about the upcoming film, Spike Lee's film on Malcolm X. And they felt that the film wasn't doing Malcolm justice, the real Malcolm justice. So they formed the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee to tell the real story, according to them, who actually walked and talked with the man.
Well, have you ever heard the story that these people, they had blanks in their guns, and actually, I think it was Dick Gregory that said that, what do you think about that?
I think, you know, and this may be controversial to some, but I just got to give my opinion because you asked for it. I don't, and I want to say it as respectful as possible, but I don't think Dick Gregory knows what he's talking about, you know. There were holes, there were actual holes in the lectern that Malcolm was standing, you know, at. There were holes in the wall behind Malcolm, you know, where bullets either may have missed Malcolm, you know, from the trajectory of, you know, the ground below the stage, where either bullets missed Malcolm or bullets went through Malcolm and struck the wall in back of him. So, so I don't put a lot of stock in what Dick Gregory, you know, says about the assassination of Malcolm X. I believe that you know, there were more people that wanted Malcolm dead than just the Nation of Islam, and I feel were making real efforts to strive to make sure that he did end up dead. So it wasn't just the Nation of Islam, but I do believe from my studies that members of the Nation of Islam, you know, particularly from the Newark Mosque, according to Talmadge Hayer, actually showed up and they shot bullets into the body of Malcolm X to take him off the earth. So I don't put a lot of stock in what Dick Gregory said.
Do you think it's intentional misinformation on Dick Gregory's part?
That's a good question, and I don't know. But let me answer it this way. You know, in that interview, I mean, it wasn't an interview, it was a speech that Dick Gregory was given when he talked about, you know, they had blanks and things of that nature. I have a problem with the fact that Dick Gregory said that he, according to him, he said to Malcolm that I'm not coming to the Audubon Ballroom on February 21st because I know that they're going to kill you today. And then he said in that speech that he said, and I'm going to tell Adam Clayton Powell, you know, the famous congressman and minister of the church is escaping me, his church, famous in Harlem.
Ebenezer?
No, not Ebenezer. That's, I don't think it's Ebenezer. But anyway, he said, I'm going to tell Adam Clayton Powell that he shouldn't show up either. And he went on to say that I'm going to get on a plane, and I believe he said he was going to Detroit or something to that effect. And he said, I'm gonna wait to get a call, and this is from memory, I haven't heard the speech. I believe he said, I'm gonna get a call from my wife and wait for her to tell me that you're dead. And then I'm gonna come back. You know, I have a problem with that. You know, what do you mean you know that Malcolm was going to be assassinated on February 21st? And this is what you're claiming in the same speech that you said that the people who shot at Malcolm had blanks. I have a problem with that statement, you know.
But he said he made that statement to Malcolm.
He said he made that statement to Malcolm, that he told Malcolm that he knows that he's going to be assassinated.
But it can't be verified. That's what you're saying.
Well, I'm not even just saying that it can't be verified. What if it could be verified? Why would you say that, you know Malcolm is going to be assassinated, and, you know, and I'm not coming, I'm going to tell this guy not to come, and I'm going to go travel, you know, to Detroit or whatever it is, and wait for them to tell me that you were killed before I come back.
It's pretty incriminating.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds very, you know, potentially incriminating.
Right.
At the most, and at the very least, it sounds like, damn, couldn't you have done more?
Exactly.
To try to persuade Malcolm from not going out there if you knew for a fact somehow that Malcolm was going to be killed on February 21st? Why would you just say, you know, well, I'm not coming, and I'm gonna tell him not to come, and I'm gonna leave you there to take the bullets, you know? So I don't put a lot of stock in what Dick Gregory said. I think some of it has a shock value, but I don't think that it has like a real credence of being true sometimes, from my point of view, you know? So, and again, my point of view is based upon, you know, my studies.
Right.
You know, there are dozens and dozens of books that have come out on the life and times of Malcolm X, where biographers have done as much as they can to go to, you know, many of the people who were there to get their story and document it for the sake of leaving behind, you know, books and videos and movies and what have you, for generations like myself to come behind and learn and to take advantage and learn. This book just came out, I think, about 2 weeks ago. The Dead Are Rising, The Life of Malcolm X. You know, so if anybody wants to study and learn, they have the opportunity to do so. You know, we shouldn't just rely upon someone with the type of celebrity status of a Dick Gregory, you know, and just go based upon his word or his hearsay. You know, we should take advantage of all of the scholarship that's out there for us to read and study and form our own opinions on the matter, you know, on any matter for that matter.
Located at 3940 Broadway between 165th and 166th Streets in the Washington Heights section of Manhattan, New York City. The Audubon Ballroom, currently renamed the Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Memorial and Educational Center. The center is best known as the place where human rights fighter Malcolm X was assassinated on February 21, 1965. The theater was developed by William Fox, a Hungarian immigrant who founded the Fox Film Company in 1915. The building was designed by Thomas Lamb. The building had 2 ballrooms located on the second floor, accessible by stairway and elevator. The building also included a large 2,500-seat movie theater, where its entrance was located below the round arc, approximately located in the front of the building. The theater was known by many names as the William Fox Audubon Theater, the Beverly Hills Theater, and lastly, the San Juan Theater. The Audubon Ballroom was built in 1912. It is currently the Audubon Business and Technology Center. After Malcolm X was terminated from being a minister in the Nation of Islam, he founded the Organization of Afro-American Unity and Muslim Mosque Incorporated and began holding weekly meetings inside the Audubon Ballroom. It was at one of these meetings on February 21 when he was assassinated. Elijah Muhammad held a press conference in his mansion about Malcolm's assassination on February 22, 1965, one day after it, and he immediately tried to distance himself and any of his organization members from being involved in Malcolm's murder. Malcolm declared that Elijah Muhammad himself gave the order to his followers either to maim him or outright murder him. Listen carefully how Elijah Muhammad openly lied about Malcolm by saying that Malcolm preached violence when he knew full well that Malcolm only advocated self-defense.
And these are the words. We were very shocked yesterday on hearing of Malcolm's death. We have known Malcolm for quite a few years. Last year, 1964, was kind of bitter with us. Malcolm breaking out of the Brotherhood of Islam, it kindly upset us all. Due to the fact that he had been such a wonderful brother among us, we regret to see the man leave on his own terms. He said he was going for himself. After we discussed I should say the disobedience part of his acts. And after we discussed that and gave him a chance to make himself a better brother in the circle of Islam, he left us, said he was going for himself. We regretted to have seen Malcolm leave.
Mr. Muhammad, do you believe, coming out of New York, that the assassin of Malcolm X was in allegiance with the Muslims in New York? How do you feel about that charge?
In fact, about it, that we have been trying to make investigations to find just where this assassin come from. And we have not been able to locate him. We don't know him. And
Mr. Muhammad, could you tell us what happened between you and Malcolm X? What was the point of disagreement, sir?
The most of our disagreement was
Malcolm wanted to use arms. Use what? He wanted to use arms, and I disagreed with him because we have always, for many years now, it's 34 years now, we never resorted to arms. And in fact about it, God reminded me of that time and again, to never to pick up arms against no one.
Mr. Muhammad, I'm sorry. Would you say flatly that no black Muslims were involved in the shooting of Malcolm X?
I wasn't there, but I don't believe that any of my followers had nothing to do with it at all. Because we don't even know this person.
Who do you think might have done it then? Who would have had reason?
I don't know. I have no knowledge of that.
Are you in fear of your own life?
No, sir.
Do you expect to keep the date you have next Friday, the speaking engagement?
I most certainly does. Have you ever been threatened? Yes, sir, many times. Have you been threatened since Malcolm X was killed yesterday? No more than what I heard.
Mr. Muhammad, with Malcolm X's split from your followers, whom will be your successor?
If Malcolm X would split from my followers.
With his having split and with his death, who will be your successor?
I don't know. I cannot tell what will happen after I die.
Well, Malcolm X said that the black Muslims were trying to kill him, and he was going to name those he thought would commit the crime yesterday before he was shot. Would you comment on that?
I don't know. I don't have any knowledge of anyone trying to kill Malcolm.
Do you think the extremism of your own organization tends to direct people towards violence, and it ends up in acts such as the death of Malcolm X?
No, we had not, as I said, never resorted to no such thing as violence. Way I see it, Malcolm is the victim of his own preaching. He preached violence, and so he became the victim of it.
Mr. Muhammad, what did Malcolm X want to use arms for?
Well, you know much about that as I do. I saw it in the paper, and I heard him say these things on TV and over radio.
What will the result of this act of violence against Mr. Malcolm be to the entire black nationalist movement?
What was the result?
What do you think will happen now that you've had this murder?
I can't foretell the future of what might happen. But as far as we are concerned, we are going on as we always have.
Mr. Muhammad, would you take back into the black Muslims the persons who deserted and went with Malcolm X and are now leaderless? Would you welcome them back?
Well, certainly if they repent, well, certainly forgiveness is always, allowed.
Isn't there violence implicit in your organization when people have to be searched to come in like we were today?
Well, that has been our custom for many years. We cannot trust people coming in our places of assembly with arms and with whiskey and whatnot, and we have found all kinds of things on people, and we just don't allow that in our places of assembly. Mr. Muhammad, how many members of the do you have in the black? I could not tell if I was to be crushed the next minute.
Do you feel there might be serious trouble between your group and the Malcolm X followers?
No, I don't expect any trouble between us and Malcolm followers. I don't think Malcolm had too many followers.
Before his death, Malcolm made some rather serious moral charges against your group. Do you have any comment on those?
No more what I have already said. I said God, Allah is the best knower of that.
Mr. Muhammad, Malcolm has said on several occasions, when he was still a very vital member of the Brotherhood of Islam, that you frequently looked into the future and received visions. Did you receive any vision as to the ultimate end that Malcolm would meet? Did you have any sort of premonition that Malcolm would meet a violent end as he did?
No, I was in hope that Allah would chastise him and bring him back on his knees. That's what I was in hope of. Were you hoping that he would come back to your... Well, I knew that would be the ultimate if he lived. There's no other way for him, or nor any other hypocrite.
Has any police force, sir, asked you for a statement?
No, sir.
On that subject here, Mr. Muhammad, even though you hoped he would be chastised, did you have any premonition that he would meet a violent death?
No.
He blamed the Muslims on the firebombing of his New York home. Do you have a comment on that?
Well, he probably could charge us with such, but in every respect or evidence, it looks to me like he did the job himself.
Mr. Muhammad, how did you intend to chastise him?
Chastise him?
Yes,
Not me, no. I didn't say I would chastise Malcolm.
Mr. Muhammad,
the chastising come from Allah. Anyone, according to Quran, and we have had that manifest in our midst for several years.
Mr. Muhammad, did you say that Malcolm set fire to his own home?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, I want
I
to
say it
clarify
looks
that.
like he was the one.
What made it look like that?
Because that, according to the police report, he was the only one in there, and that was the liquid that would do a job like that. According to the paper.
His family was in the house with him.
Yes, according to the paper. I'm only going from what I read in the paper.
So did you request the police guard around your home from the city?
Huh?
Did you request the police guard?
No, sir.
You say the police have not talked to you?
No, sir.
Did the FBI talk to you?
No, sir.
Mr. Muhammad, yesterday in a Wire story, a Muslim was quoted as saying that the chickens had come home to roost on Malcolm in reference to Malcolm's earlier statement about the assassination of President Kennedy. Do you feel a Muslim brother would make such a statement about Malcolm upon learning of his death?
Well, I don't know. I know nothing about who it was any more than you. I just heard that myself and read it.
Do you think any of your more prominent followers, such as Cassius Clay, are in any danger because of the
I don't know.
violence?
That's what I have to repeat continually. I don't know who it was.
Mr. Muhammad, what do you think is the big difference between your philosophy and Malcolm?
In fact about it, I am the man that taught Malcolm what he knew about Islam. But I didn't teach him what he went for himself. I taught him Islam and the history of his people, my people, and others. As far as what he has gone for himself, I didn't teach him that.
An advertisement for a magazine article, I believe in the Post, claims that this article characterizes your organization as more interested in making money than in the progress of colored people.
Well, that's understood. That's understood. When a group of people or organization looks to be prosperous or successful in their effort or whatever they are doing.
There was no remorse from Elijah Muhammad about what happened to Malcolm. He's the one who threw his top minister under the bus.
You don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom.
No, I think that the guilt complex of the American white man is so profound until when you begin to analyze the real condition of the black man in America, instead of the American white man eliminating the causes that create that condition, he tries to cover it up by accusing his accusers of teaching hate. But actually, they're just exposing him for being responsible for what exists.
We have injected ourselves into the civil rights struggle, and we intend to expand it from the level of civil rights to the level of human rights. As long as you fight it on the level of civil rights, you're under Uncle Sam's jurisdiction. You're going to his court expecting him to correct the problem. He created the problem. He's the criminal. You don't take your case to the criminal, you take your criminal to court.
We feel that the problem, number one, of the black man in America is beyond America's ability to solve. It's a human problem, not an American problem or a Negro problem. And as a human problem or a world problem, we feel that it should be taken out of the jurisdiction of the United States government and the United States courts and taken into the United Nations in the same manner that the problems of the black man in South Africa, Angola, and other parts of the world, and even the way they're trying to bring the problems of the Jews in Russia into the United Nations because of violation of human rights. We believe that our problem is one not of violation of civil rights, but a violation of human rights.
I was in the military for 8 years.
Yes, sir.
And I kind of know how the hierarchy of the military system works. And I think it's common wisdom that the Nation of Islam and the Fruit of Islam is a derivative of the military in terms of how it breaks down the hierarchy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that being the case, is it possible that something as big as the assassination of Malcolm X could happen and it not be known by all of the prominent officials on the East Coast?
No.
Is it possible, like you were just talking about, the ministers we were talking about, James and Jeremiah and other officials like Clarence Gill and some of the officials here in number 7 here in New York, is it possible that they would not know that this was going to happen on February 21st, 1965?
No. They knew it was well planned and well orchestrated. They didn't care what the messenger said. And please understand this, the messenger never made the statement, leave Malcolm alone.
Okay.
He didn't make that statement until after Minister Malcolm was dead. That's when he made that statement. He said, I told them.
Right.
But he never made that statement. That was never official nowhere.
Right.
You couldn't find that in print nowhere, in no writing. And he had the newspaper, and he still had the Amsterdam News, the Pittsburgh Courier, the Detroit Press. They had still ran his articles, and they never ever made that statement before Minister Malcolm was assassinated. He made that statement after his announcement.
So from a legal standpoint, I know neither one of us are lawyers, and that's probably not
guilty.
No, but from a legal standpoint,
guilty.
Are not these officials that we're talking about, to include some very prominent ministers,
guilty?
People here, people that are still around,
guilty,
could be seen as conspirators.
That makes you guilty. If you conspire to be involved in a crime, then you're guilty.
Exactly. So if someone says that I contributed to the atmosphere that caused his assassination, it's basically what I'm getting to is it's more than that. This person, you can say that because it legally absolves you of any kind of complicity on a legal standpoint, but I happen to believe that pretty much every minister certainly along the Atlantic seaboard, every official, whether it be captain, knew exactly when it was going to happen, where it was going to happen, and a lot of the other details that people are just tuning in or just saw the documentary back in February.
Right.
So I mean, a lot of people, particularly black people in our community, try to absolve certain people, Farrakhan, I'll just go out and throw the name of that. Right. They try to absolve him of complicity when, if you understand how the nation worked at the time, I can't say that I do, but I believe you did at being a person who was in the nation. There's absolutely no way that he could not have been an active planner in this. He
was probably not a planner, and I'll tell you why he wasn't planning it.
Good, definitely.
New York was to kill him first, but they didn't get to it.
Right.
That's why they called Jersey in.
Okay.
Jersey said, okay, New York is dragging their feet. We'll take care of that.
Okay.
Minister Farrakhan had some people in New York that he could depend on.
Mm-hmm.
But keep in mind, Minister Malcolm made New York. So the fact that he made New York, he couldn't trust everybody. So he could have said something to the wrong person and cost him his life. He could have went to an understudy brother, under Captain Joseph, and said, look, we got to get rid of Minister Malcolm. You do? And then they start questioning why. So he couldn't play all his cards in New York. That's why they were so slow at murdering Minister Malcolm. And when Jersey got involved in it, they immediately went right to work. I mean, because they were murderers. You know, they were treacherous. And, you know,
That's deep.
If Jersey wouldn't have done it, Philly would have done it. In fact, Philadelphia is mad that they didn't get to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is deep.
And again, I say, you know, they called Minister Malcolm a lot of things, but they never called him a liar.
Now let me ask you a question.
Yes,
were you at the armory? Were you were in the area, but were you at the armory the day that Elijah Muhammad Jr., who recently passed, made the statement about Malcolm? Let's cut out his tongue. You weren't there.
No.
Did you remember hearing about it?
Yeah, I knew all about that. I knew
Wow.
all about that. That was a FOI only meeting. That was a men only meeting.
Okay.
FOI.
Okay.
And no, I did not take part of that. Thankful for that. I didn't. I was really young at that point.
Okay.
And I did not play any part in that. I never heard that until after later in years. You know, I've heard about that. But after he was assassinated, it was like a party. I mean, in the nation.
Yeah, and that's actually speaks to what I was going to ask you.
Yes, sir.
What was that day and in those days adjacent to the assassination? What was the talk and what did you witness? What did you see?
A lot of people felt as though that was the best thing that could ever happen to the Nation of Islam. The fact that Minister Malcolm was assassinated.
Wow.
A lot of people actually felt it. You know, I've heard Jeremiah Shabazz talk about Minister Malcolm. I said he said that he was lazy. He said that he was he said he wouldn't work. He said that he was like cornflakes that was been in milk for 3 days, soggy. You know, he really belittled Minister Malcolm. And Minister Malcolm made Jeremiah Shabazz. You know, Minister Malcolm made so many people. You know, he made the nation.
Now, when you say he made them, you might want to because what's going to happen is a lot of people know that I believe Jeremiah was already working in the nation prior to Malcolm being
Jeremiah Shabazz was down south someplace.
Okay.
In Hooterville, in the backwoods.
Right. I know he was a minister in Atlanta for a while.
Minister Malcolm went down there and made Jeremiah who Jeremiah is.
Right.
And he brought him to Philadelphia to number 12.
Okay.
That was Minister Malcolm doing that.
Right.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad had nothing to do with that. He had to approve it.
Right.
But it was Minister Malcolm's call.
Right. But Jeremiah actually is a native of Philly. You know what I mean? He's from Philly. Yeah.
Did you ever hear Minister Jeremiah speak?
I've heard tapes of him speak. He said some really greasy. He said what you said about Malcolm, like he didn't want to work. No, that was Joseph that said that Malcolm was a slick guy.
He hated him from the very beginning.
Wow.
And the reason Captain Joseph hated Minister Malcolm is that because Minister Malcolm was over Captain Joseph and he dictated what he was doing. What was going on was that Captain Joseph was strong-arming brothers, forcing them to sell papers. You know, you come by the mosque and you pick up 100 papers. They didn't care about you having your job. They didn't care about you having children. They didn't care about you having a family to raise.
Right.
They cared about you selling papers, getting the word out, get people to come into the mosque. If you didn't bring 5 people into the mosque a week or 7 people into the mosque a week, you wasn't doing your job. You wasn't selling your papers. If you wasn't selling 100 papers or 200 papers, you know, you had a quota that you had to reach. The captain set the quota.
Right.
You couldn't go in and say, well, I'll take 50. You couldn't do that.
Okay.
You would go in and say, take 300.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And then, if you couldn't meet your quota, they used to call them brothers who stacked the papers.
Okay.
You know, a lot of brothers had papers stacked this high in closets all through their house because you couldn't sell them all. There was less than 5,000 followers in the Nation of Islam when Minister Malcolm got involved. When he got involved. At his passing, they was beginning to peak. I mean, they was getting a lot of the young people. They had to get the young people to get in. They was already bringing in the hardcore, the criminals. They was bringing in, you know, they wanted the youth in, and they wanted the people that were doctors, professional people. They wanted to bring them in, the businessmen and things like that. That's what they wanted to bring in and do. But what happened is that the people that are in the hierarchy that wanted the money, they wanted money constantly coming in. All of the Elijah Muhammad's sons, his nephews, and everybody wanted money. And they didn't care about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was just an old man in the way.
Right. Did anybody ever say anything about those honorariums and the stipends and stuff Malcolm was getting for these speeches and
Listen,
these
I need to say this.
lectures and stuff?
I was a provider and a supporter of the 3-year economic program for 30 years. And
I get it.
I say that because they said they're going to do so much and did so little. You know. And then after the messenger passed, it really went downhill. It was all over. When the messenger passed, he didn't have his hands involved in nothing. It was done. The nation was done.
People from all walks of life and professions admire Malcolm X. 1995 Alabama State University graduate, comedian, television, and film star Doug Williams from Montgomery, Alabama, expressed his respect for Brother Malcolm to filmmaker Omar Shabazz, and a friendship was quickly established between the two men.
Do I feel a lot of people changed their opinion about Malcolm X long after he was assassinated? You know, I do feel a lot of people changed their opinion. A lot of people who were probably against him when he was alive, over time realized that there was a lot of irony and a lot of truth in things that Malcolm was saying. I do recall this. Here's a very interesting story. So I'm a huge Muhammad Ali fan. Love Muhammad Ali. And a friend of mine around 2001 started dating his daughter, Layla Ali, a good friend of mine named Yaya. And we would always go out and play pool, and I would tell him, hey, I want to meet Muhammad Ali. I want to meet Muhammad Ali. And out of nowhere one night, he just called me and said, hey, we're at the Beverly Hills Hotel. If you want to meet Muhammad Ali, you better be here in 20 minutes. And it was evening time. It was in the evening. It was probably about 7, 8 o'clock, because he said Muhammad Ali. Probably about 8:30, was getting ready to go to bed. So I remember I drove at breakneck speed to get over there, running red lights. And I got there, parked, and rushed up to the hotel room. And Yaya must have told him that I was a comedian, because when they opened the door, Muhammad was standing there and he started throwing punches, just throwing punches at me. You ain't funny, you ain't funny, in a low whisper, because by this time Parkinson's had robbed him of his speech. He spoke very softly. You had to really listen to understand what he was saying. And out of nowhere, I pulled out this book. He didn't know I had the book. I'm gonna look at the camera because I want to make sure the book is in frame. I pulled out this book. And this is a photo album of Muhammad Ali, of Malcolm X, I'm sorry, a photo album of Malcolm X, a bunch of photos of him. And it was like he saw a ghost, like a dead relative had just walked in the room, because he just stood there. And all of a sudden he went and he sat in his chair and he asked me to see the book. He motioned, let me see the book. And I gave him the book, and all of the energy was sucked out of the room. And he just started flipping through pages in this book with a deep sadness in his face. He started flipping through pages and he started signing pages, and he would sign all of the pages that touched him. And here's one of the pages he signed, and this is him and Malcolm X at the restaurant eating. And you can see, here's his signature on this page. And it was almost like he had tears in his eyes. He kept flipping through the book, and he mumbled, I love Malcolm. And you can see I'm looking for different places where he signed the book. He just kept going and he kept signing. And I heard him say in a low voice, here's another page that he signed. It's him and Malcolm X in Miami, right before he beat Sonny Liston. I could hear him say, another picture that he signed of Malcolm X. I could hear him say, barely, that he regretted the way things had ended between him and Malcolm. And I could just tell in his face that he came over to seeing things the way Malcolm saw things. And I never will forget that for as long as I live. And he hugged me before I left, and he thanked me for bringing that book. So I know he changed. Never will forget it.
If I were guarding Malcolm X, many times I think what would I have done in the event of the assassination of Brother Malcolm? I think about how easy it was to kill him. It was too easy. Malcolm needed soldiers, brothers ready to lay down their lives. But I asked myself the question, is that what he had? Or did he just have a group of devoted followers? When you are a revolutionary, you are leading or starting a revolution. Malcolm always said that revolutions were bloody and were not for the faint of heart. So what kind of soldiers did Malcolm have? I know they were good brothers, but to keep Malcolm X alive, you need brothers that are militant, and that's me. I would not have listened to everything that Malcolm said, because I think that towards the end of his life, despite his great leadership, Malcolm was not functioning correctly in terms of his mental state. I think that Malcolm was under extreme duress and was thinking more about his family's welfare than himself. I truly think that Malcolm thought that if I give myself to them, that they would leave his family alone. Not to blame Malcolm in any way, but to just consider his frame of mind at that time, the stress he was under, which I think was filled with anxiety about his family's safety and not himself. I think Malcolm needed people who would stand up to him and tell him that if you tell us not to search people, carry any weapons, that he was not just risking his own life, that he's risking ours. Sometimes a leader needs to be challenged for the sake of the group. Malcolm was, still is, and will always be our fallen leader, and we must finish what he started. But in hindsight, I would have disobeyed Malcolm and would have been seriously packing. You can't be a great bodyguard if you are a yes man. Do your job, but read between the lines. Malcolm needed a militant army behind him, like Fidel Castro got, like all the other revolutionaries who had armies. That's what he needed, top-notch security. Too much was at stake. Malcolm needed bodyguards that were ready to put in work, if you know what I mean. As I sit down in my favorite park and read the daily newspaper, I often fantasize about being the one that saved Malcolm, about the soldier that went beyond the call to save Malcolm's life. Khalid Muhammad used to carry a gun in his Bible before Minister Farrakhan even knew that he was carrying a gun. A true warrior thinks ahead. That's what Malcolm needed. Dedicated killers, ready to kill to protect the life of a man that made the transition from a street hustler to becoming a world savior for our people, and a leader in the fight for reparations. With Malcolm under that kind of pressure, somebody should have thought for him and made this decision for him. The entire front line should have ignored his wishes and started packing 24/7. Malcolm might have been upset. He may have been really, really hurt, but he'd be alive.
Lifelong social activist and socialist and union official, Roland Shepherd has stood for the equality of all people for quite some time. The author of several books, Shepherd is one of the few remaining people who was present inside the Audubon Ballroom on February 21, 1965, when Malcolm X was assassinated.
You participated in the Black Liberation Movement. Can you tell me about that and what was your involvement?
In college, I was, my short time in college, I picketed Woolworths in solidarity with the SNCC sit-downs, and I was a little bit involved in other places where I lived in the civil rights movement.
Did Malcolm X ever appear at the Militant Labor Forum? If so, how did he get there?
He appeared at the Militant Labor Forum 2 weeks after he announced his independence from the Nation of Islam, and he agreed to speak. It was I think it was his first public meeting after he left the nation.
You knew Malcolm X. How did your alliance with him come about? Did Malcolm know you by name?
Well, he was familiar with the newspaper of the Socialist Workers' Party, The Militant. And he had read The Militant, and his opinion was kind of favorable as far as the press. And so he knew about the forum, and he welcomed the chance to speak at our forum. We went to a large outside auditorium for his first forum.
Did Malcolm believe in the practice of socialism, and do you still embrace it in 2021, and why do you believe it's practical in 2021?
Malcolm X was not a socialist. He was interested in fighting for freedom for his people. He felt it was necessary that you had to separate from the white power structure. And in his opening press conference, he said, there can't be black-white worker solidarity until there is black worker solidarity. And of course, those sentences were taken out of the Spike Lee film when they showed Denzel Washington giving the press conference. And it gives you an idea where he was thinking when he left the Nation of Islam.
Roland, when did you first meet Malcolm X?
I first met him when he spoke at the second Militant Labor Forum. He had just gotten back from Africa, and there was a hate gang scandal in the New York Times about hate gangs in Harlem. And Malcolm X's secretary was supposed to speak for the forum, but then the James Shabazz, Malcolm's secretary, says, well, I can't speak today. Can Malcolm speak in your place? Because Malcolm heard about the forum and heard about the hate gangs, so he decided to speak at that forum. Because a chance to make the public record. And at that time, the Militant had over 1,000 regular readers, mainly in the black community in New York City.
Most white people were afraid of Malcolm X. He was calling white people devils. Were you offended by that?
No, because especially when he was talked about the white power structure. But in general, white are devils. Look at the racists right now in present-day society. They stormed the White House.
Who had Malcolm become when he was assassinated?
Pardon?
Who had Malcolm become when he was assassinated?
Who had he become?
When he was assassinated.
When he was assassinated, his ideas were progressing along many ways. He had opposed the war in Vietnam. He had made alliances with leaders in Africa and got them for the first time to speak against the United States racism. He was going to speak at the Bandung Conference, Third World Conference, later, 2 weeks after he was assassinated. His ideas were in motion. He said, he was for human rights, and he thought it was for everybody's human rights at that point, as a struggle for human rights in the world.
Why did the government assassinate Malcolm X?
One, he opposed the war. He was the first national leader to oppose the war in Vietnam. Two, he got the African leaders on the OAU to come out against American racism. And that's at a time where you had the Black Liberation Movement, and the United States wanted to try to co-opt any leadership within that movement and try to present themselves as friendly towards black people when you have a whole history of racism in this country. And so he opposed those images, and the United States couldn't tolerate it. I mean, King got assassinated, a year or two after he came out against the war of Vietnam. A year after he came out against the war in Vietnam. There's no surprise.
Malcolm X said black empowerment or else. Instead, many black folks went for integration, and it has failed us economically as the money and resources went to minorities, people of color, and all the people, but not specifically for black descendants of American slavery and Jim Crow. Malcolm X also said the ballot or the bullet. Instead, many blacks have opened up their buttholes just to have dirty money stuffed in it. Many of our black elected officials and politicians have been bought and paid for. That's why they do nothing for us as black people. They work for the white supremacists to help deny us wealth and resources and to put us in the face of genocide. These black elected officials should know that black people are in a race, which is called racism. We're supposed to be in first place in the first place. Hell, we built this country. But these black elected officials make sure the resources and tangibles goes to the white supremacists, the LGBT, and the illegal immigrants. Thank you, black elected officials and politicians, for declaring war on us by providing us with illegal guns and drugs. In this race, which is called racism, we're in last place, still running on a hamster wheel, while other groups like the Asians, the Hispanics, the LGBT, the illegal immigrants are running past us with the help of black elected officials to empower these groups over us. Thank you, Barack Obama, for being the first U.S. president in blackface. If Malcolm X was alive, he would have hated his guts. While as U.S. president, Obama gave the 100,000 Jews in this country that survived the German Holocaust $12 million apiece. Obama also gave the white-looking Native Americans as a group $492 million. Obama also gave almost $200 million to Philippine veterans of World War II to pay a debt. Meanwhile, what about the debt to pay black Americans for slavery and oppression in this country? Obama looked out for the LGBT and illegal immigrants and refused to put black Americans in a protective class against white supremacists who are killing us. Look at what you did, Nation of Islam, for pulling the actual trigger to murder Malcolm X. This has set black people's rise to black empowerment back another 200 years or more. If alive, Malcolm X would have taken the case of reparations and human rights violations against the U.S. government to the United Nations. The Nation of Islam had a chance to follow Malcolm's path and redeem his murder, but in 2021, there is nothing on the agenda. Some words for Black Lives Matter, as Black lives don't matter if you're not talking about black empowerment. That's why there's a need for tangible benefits and resources. Thanks to our politicians and black elected officials, they have exploited and extorted our own people to finance other communities. Somehow we have accepted our own genocide. Let's start to own and stop being owned by our enemies. Let's be incorporated and start an LLC and save money and buy up land and businesses and call it our own. Now that's black empowerment. Computer programs such as coding, cybersecurity, web design classes, cell phone repair classes, and robotics are needed to keep the youth off the streets and gain professions and companies for future black empowerment. Come on, you punk black officials and politicians. Where are the code ninja schools in the black neighborhoods to prepare our kids for the future of technology? But we have rappers and rap lyrics. The order of the day for most rap lyrics are drugs, money, sex, and violence. Gone of the days of real music like Love and Happiness, Let's Stay Together, Keep on Pushing, This Is My Country, and I Found Lovin'. Today, our music is weaponized against us. Biggie was a hero to the grassroots, as the politicians and college educated were so indoctrinated in white supremacy. It seems like these folks can't relate to the youth and the streets. Biggie came from nothing and made something out of himself with limited resources. Many of today's young people don't know Malcolm X, only heard of him through their elders or grandparents and YouTube videos. The young people want to relate to today's leaders, which unfortunately are the rappers, which represent today the voices of the grassroots who are unheard. Many of the new generations of black folk believe Biggie was black empowerment, which was really a Jedi mind trick to believe in nigga shit. Remember, Malcolm X spoke out on our entertainers becoming our leaders, but today our entertainers and rappers are also weaponized against us. To the establishment, Biggie was a symbol of the prison industrial complex, which was a white supremacist agenda to lock up black people for drug crimes, regardless of using or possessing drugs. How dare you, Joe Biden and Bill Clinton, for putting forward the 1994 crime bill? If Biggie had the correct resources and tangibles as a young man, maybe he wouldn't be out in the streets hustling for his daughter or being used as an agenda against our people. Today's streets and grassroots have been infiltrated by the coons and foreign backstabbers. It's the reason why we haven't progressed since the death of Malcolm X. I'm guessing cable, Wi-Fi, internet, and wireless is making our folks happily walk back on the plantations to chattel slavery again. We must rid our race of coons, backstabbers, and sellouts by brain knowledge of our own finance and cryptocurrency investment, so that we can look at today's rappers and entertainers as jokes. Malcolm X said the ballot or the bullet, not the butthole. With only two choices, the ballot or the bullet, please choose one. The revolution remains. We can do this by any means necessary.
Okay, so basically you're saying there was pretty much a celebration for the most part.
Yes, yes.
After Malcolm was killed.
It was a joyous occasion.
You know, I'm gonna tell you the problem, and I talk about this all the time with my friends, the people that I talk Malcolm with. The problem I have with that is the fact that they would take it to that level. And that sounds kind of simplistic, but what I mean is, here we have basically a group of people who disagree with a man to the point where they feel like they had to kill him. Like, I have a problem with, now that's where I have a problem with the nation itself, in that
correct.
You're so bought into whatever it is that you're doing in terms of the nation and their dogma,
right,
that you feel like this man has to die. To me, I don't understand why the verbal vitriol wasn't enough. Why they had to go and take it there, because I don't get, you didn't get anything from it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying they didn't get anything from that. Like,
they actually did, and what happened was, see, they had to murder him because he was like a freight train. He was unstoppable. He would have pulled the people that were already in the Nation of Islam out with him. Mm-hmm. A lot of them left with him to begin with.
Right.
But he would have pulled everybody out. Had he got a national platform.
Right.
He would have separated the nation straight down the middle. I mean, those that would have stuck with Honorable Elijah Muhammad would have stuck with him just because, hey, we've been with you for a while.
Right.
Those who follow Minister Malcolm would get all the young liberators, all the young fighters, all the young soldiers, all the junior fruit we used to call them.
I got you.
They would have been with Minister Malcolm, which would have made him more powerful than the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
So what I'm getting from that is that I think Malcolm, or it seems like you're saying that Malcolm was banking on, at a certain point, common sense would have kicked in and overridden all of the fanaticism and all of that stuff.
Well, if the press and white folks wouldn't have got involved and supported the Nation of Islam during this,
right,
they would have never ever been able to murder Minister Malcolm. But because white folks got involved,
right,
they had their hands in it, because they got involved
no doubt,
in it,
without question,
that made the nation look like it was the stronghold and that Minister Malcolm was a weak link. You know, for those that were inside the nation, we was getting the same thing that the world was getting about what was going on. But we didn't understand the magnitude of Minister Malcolm. You know, we didn't understand that because they didn't teach us that, and they didn't tell us that. And white folks wasn't going to tell us.
Yeah.
You know, if Minister Malcolm would have been involved in the Nation of Islam as much as he wanted to, and they let him, then reparation was a guarantee. Because he was the only black man that ever talking about taking our case to the world court. He said we're about beyond civil rights, it's about human rights.
Exactly.
And he was the only black man that ever stood up to do that. And no one has done it since then. So all the black leaders that came up that we alleged as leaders since then never stepped in them shoes to take our case to the world court, you know, for reparation.
Right.
Nobody, never. As intelligent as Minister Farrakhan was, he never talked about it. He gets in front of statues and parks and talk tough, and then do nothing. You know, they had this big thing last year, or else. You know, or else what? You know, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna do nothing. There's no unity, and they never jumped on nobody white. They never jumped on nobody white. Never beat up a white person. They never even caught a white cop that split black heads and caught him and snapped him and put him in the alleyway. Never.
Right.
Now they had some Negroes in Philadelphia that was in the Nation of Islam. They were just stone cold hearted murderers. They jumped on some cops.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
There's a name that I've heard and read about in the Philadelphia from Mosque number 12, and I believe his name was Sterling Hobbs.
Yes.
Can you speak to tell me?
Very little. He was a Brother Sterling was an innovator.
Right. Right.
He was an innovator of control.
Okay.
In other words, he would never get his hands dirty. He was smart.
Okay.
He was smart. See, you know, run over there and get me a sandwich, brother, and I'll be here waiting for you.
Right. Okay. Okay.
You know.
Yeah, but I heard he had a reputation for being in stuff.
Getting stuff done.
Yeah.
Getting stuff done.
Yeah, okay.
He had a bigger reputation for getting stuff done.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't gonna get out there physically and rustle around on the street with you, not like that. He wasn't gonna pull it up and pull you out of the car and beat you down. But he'd be on the corner and have three brothers go over there and pull you out and beat you down. You know.
Wow.
And if you was one of the three brothers, you didn't do good enough, you'd be the next one. You know, you'd be next.
Wow.
Yeah. Everything was deadly serious, brother. I mean, everything was deadly serious.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Like when I think about Malcolm, it's kind of a question, a lingering question. I mean, I think pretty much everybody in the world has to acknowledge that he had a mind that was incredible.
Oh yeah.
Especially when you consider the fact that he pretty much trained and honed his mind himself.
Correct.
You know, his own volition. But how he became susceptible to the Nation of Islam and some of the dogma and stuff, you know, I kind of struggle with, you know, how somebody that sharp could fall for some of that.
Our staff wanted to cover everything in New York City that was associated with Brother Malcolm, and Harlem, New York, USA was one of them. The church where Malcolm's funeral was held was on our list. The building, over its 95-year history, was once a synagogue, a movie theater, a Pentecostal church, and lastly, the Faith Temple Church of God in Christ, presided over by Bishop Alvin A. Childs, where he and his wife received many bomb threats at their home and at the church, merely for wanting to hold Malcolm X's funeral there. It's the church where famous actor Ossie Davis recited a eulogy heard around the world.
Here, at this final hour, in this quiet place, Harlem has come to bid farewell to one of its brightest hopes, extinguished now and gone from us forever. For Harlem is where he worked and where he struggled and fought. There are those who will consider it their duty as friends of the Negro people to tell us to revile him, to flee even from the presence of his memory, to save ourselves by writing him out of the history of our turbulent times. Many will ask what Harlem finds to honor in this stormy, controversial, and bold young captain. And we will smile. Many will say, turn away, away from this man, for he is not a man, but a demon, a monster, a subverter, and an enemy of the black man. And we will smile. They will say that he is of hate, a fanatic, a racist, who can only bring evil to the cause for which you struggle. And we will answer and say unto them, did you ever talk to Brother Malcolm? Did you ever touch him or have him smile at you? Did you ever really listen to him? Did he ever do a mean thing? Was he ever himself associated with violence or any public disturbance? For if you did, you would know him. And if you knew him, you would know why we must honor him. Malcolm was our manhood, our living black manhood. This was his meaning to his people. And in honoring him, we honor the best in ourselves. However much we differed with him, or with each other about him and his value as a man, let his going from us serve only to bring us together now. Consigning these mortal remains to earth, the common mother of all, secure in the knowledge that what we place in the ground is no more now a man, but a seed, which, after the winter of discontent, will come forth again to meet us, and we shall know him then for what he was and is, a prince, our own black shining prince, who did not hesitate to die because he loved us so.
That was on February 27, 1965, at 9:20 a.m. On this day, services began, which were presided over by playwright-actor Ossie Davis. At this small church, approximately 1,500 people attended the service, 500 of them outside the church itself. The procession traveled to Ferncliff Cemetery in Hartsdale, New York. This church that Malcolm was funeralized at is no more. This historic church was demolished in 2018, along with various businesses that were next to it. There's no longer any pews in the 600-seat auditorium. The chandelier that was over actor Ossie Davis when he spoke has been removed and put somewhere for safekeeping. The church was originally the Bluebird Theater. It was a 600-seat theater located in the Sugar Hill community of Harlem and opened in 1921 and continued under the name the Bluebird Theater for several years. In 1930, it became the Ramona Theater. In May of 1938, the name changed to the Teatro Granada that featured Spanish-language films. At one point, the name changed again to the Lido Theater. In 1950, the Lido Theater was sold for $175,000 to Dr. Alvin A. Childs. The site in 2023 remains empty. In 2021, community leaders rallied at the site, calling for the city to alter its plans of building a shelter for the homeless in favor of permanently affordable housing. On May 13, 2022, the Shabazz production team went to the original location of the church at 1763 Amsterdam Avenue. When we crossed the street to the lot, we were immediately greeted by a strange-looking doll that was mounted on top of the fence that appeared to be on guard protecting the empty lot. At least that's what the figure's body language projected. We decided to call this figure the Voodoo Doll. Using a smartphone, we took a photo of the doll, hoping we could get some information on it, who its artist was, its meaning. But nothing came up. Our visibility to the lot was limited. We tried holding our camera high above the fence, but we couldn't tell what we were capturing. We were shooting blind. We had no choice but to shoot from the rooftop of an adjacent building. But I still wasn't happy with what my cinematographer captured. Even from this high-up aerial view, all we could see was dense bush, small trees. It looked like a small forest down there. Why wasn't this church designated a landmark, a place to be preserved? We were fast learning in 2023 that everything associated with Brother Malcolm is either completely altered or totally wiped off the map. The 95-year-old building's roof was the first thing to give way. The constant harsh weather took its toll over the years, and due to poor maintenance of the building, it had become a dangerous hazard and had to be shut down. Bishop Alvin A. Childs was the pastor and founder of the Faith Temple Church of God in Christ at 1763 Amsterdam Avenue. He was also a former mayor of Harlem, New York. He passed away at age 64 in August of 1973 of an apparent heart attack. After Malcolm X was assassinated, Bishop Childs offered his church for the Muslim funeral service. The staff of Shabazz Productions salute Bishop Alvin A. Childs and thank him for his service. Two men that are tied together are Clarence 13X and Malcolm X. Both were Nation of Islam members that were terminated from the organization. Both men were assassinated and died of gunshot wounds. Clarence 13X was also known under the name The Father and Allah. He was more widely known as Clarence 13X. So in this production, this is the name that we will call him. Clarence 13X was the leader and founder of the group called the 5%ers, where it was taught to all members that there was no such thing as an invisible God, and that black men were gods, and that only 5% of the Earth's population knew the truth about God. The definitive 2-volume book set, written by Wakil Allah, In the Name of Allah, A History of Clarence 13X and the 5%ers, is considered the Bible on this subject and is required reading. All 5% members, under the direction of Clarence 13X, had to learn the supreme wisdom lessons, and later in this film will be addressed. But before the supreme wisdom lessons were learned, the first thing that had to be mastered were the 36 laws of Islam that dealt with proper behavior. The 36 laws of Islam. 1. No being loud to ourselves or others in public. 2. Too much joking is no good. 3. No yelling at one another in public. 4. No using ugly, indecent language, slang. 5. No calling one another names, nicknames, etc. 6. No singing foolish or filthy songs. 7. No dancing, shaking, or twisting the body in public. 8. No lusting and looking with wanting eyes at each other. 9. No smoking or drinking the fire spirits. 10. No chewing tobacco or using it in any form. 11. No form-fitting clothes. 12. No wearing of shorts in public. 13. No gambling. 14. No games of chance. 15. No whistling. 16. Go cleanly dressed. 17. Keep your house clean. 18. The woman should never invite or allow strange men into her home in the absence of her husband, father or brother, son of her father. 19. Show respect for self and others. 20. Respect and honor men in authority, whether they respect you or not. 21. Do not steal or take advantage of one another because of the freedom to do so. 22. Do not provoke no one. 23. Do not quarrel or fight one another. 24. Protect your women and girls from the love of strange men. 25. Protect your daughters and women from doing evil and filth. 26. Rid yourself from laziness. Be smart and industrious. 27. Do good and righteousness, regardless to whom and where. 28. Be not wasteful. Help to build a better future for self and kind. 29. Patronize your own people in business. 30. Be not divided. Have love and unity for self and kind. 31. Serve one God, Allah, one religion, Islam. 32. Speak good for self and kind. Never join in making fun of your own people with non-members of your people. 33. Be true to self and other than your own kind. 34. Defend each other against danger to lives and property of your own kind. 35. Be clean internally, mentally, as well as externally, body. 36. A total bath should be taken daily. Here's a brief story about Clarence 13X, taken from one of our previous productions.
Unfortunately, after the incorruptible Malcolm X was effectively destroyed, others would surface to continue the same backwardness taught by Farad and Elijah. Artificial intelligence designed to fit black people into nothing but straitjackets. Not to be so hard on Clarence 13X, he did many commendable things with black youth who American society openly rejected. But Clarence's leadership skills were not focused on internationalism. At best, Clarence was only relegated to his community. It was still an accomplishment that was highly praiseworthy. But the flaw in Clarence's program was his lack of originality. Everything he taught was based on the fabricated teachings of Farad and Elijah. Make no mistake about it, Clarence produced many brilliant followers. Malcolm X, even till this day, had the best program for black people. And sadly, like Clarence 13X, most of his followers were anti-Malcolm.
First of all, I personally was never around the father physically, but I've been around brothers, and I'm still around brothers that knew that was with Allah. You ain't never heard no story about Allah smoking cigarettes. You never heard no story about Allah drinking and getting drunk. The father used to gamble. He liked gambling. He used to call them bones, you know. But when he gambled, the money he made, he gave to the babies, and he won. He was a master gambler. You know, but he wasn't about making money. He used to use any means he could to communicate with the people. You know, when you want to teach the people, you got to go to the people. You got to go to the bars, you got to go in the streets, you got to go in the hallway. You got to be around them. How you going to teach people that's on drugs unless you're around people that's on drugs?
White supremacy had no outside constituents. And the reality is that while Clarence may have been placed on the city's payroll and all appeared to be forgiven, his violent clashes with white authorities in the past always made those in charge wonder what he could revert back to. Clarence 13X was monitored constantly, and his reputation for dice shooting did not favorably enhance his image of black leadership. In December of 1964, Clarence 13X was shot with a high-powered rifle in the basement of a building that was a gambling spot known as The Hole. The high-powered rifle was a hunting rifle that used a .30-06 caliber round. The power of these two components combined earned this weapon the name the Elephant Gun. And though the bullet from this rifle had Clarence's name on it, Clarence survived the shooting. A elephant gun could take down anything.
I always heard of during that period in the early 60s that the father couldn't die, that he was invincible, and that and the major thing that happened that proved that is when he was shot in 64 and survived the shooting, and they said that he was shot by an elephant gun. So we believe that he had these super powers, these powers beyond imagination, and that even made us even more attracted to him.
Had Malcolm lived, he would have successfully taken black people's case to the United Nations, where the government would have been embarrassed all over the world for bringing Afro-Americans to this country and mistreating them, where blacks were functioning without an instruction manual, doing everything from A to Z by trial and error, while having the weight on their shoulders of just trying to survive. Malcolm would have forced this government to set up cultural centers so cultural restoration could begin, instead of blacks being out of their minds as they are right now, a conquered and lost people trying to assimilate into other societies who still don't want them. Historically, the Western power structure never had a seat for militant black leadership it couldn't fully control, and only played musical chairs with them, leaving black leaders scrambling for a seat. Goal number 1 of the FBI's counterintelligence program: prevent the coalition of militant black nationalist groups. In unity there is strength, a truism that is no less valid for all its triteness. An effective coalition of black nationalist groups might be the first step towards a real Mau Mau, a black revolutionary army in America, the beginning of a true black revolution.
So they said Clarence, or the father, was very fluent in the lessons. That was his attraction. And he was, I believe he wanted to be in the ministry class. I'm not sure, but I think that they were saying that he wanted to be in the ministry class. But I'm going to distill some myths. I'm going to tell you what I heard. That when it came to discipline, he didn't have it. He didn't have that kind of discipline. And in the Nation of Islam, discipline is commanded. You have to take care of your family. You have to make meetings. You have to participate in the propagation of the truth. You would have to adhere to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And Clarence liked to gamble. In fact, I remember the brother saying that he would shoot dice. And when he shot dice, 7 is a winning. He said, 7, that's God, that's me, God. And he would win. And he had built a lot of debt as a result of that.
The staff of Shabazz Productions made a visit to the Martin Luther King Jr. Towers, also known as the Foster Housing Projects, at 90 Lenox Avenue and Malcolm X Boulevard, Harlem, New York, zip code 10026. We visited the actual building that Clarence 13X was murdered in at 21 West 112th Street. On our way to the building, we asked dozens of people if they knew anything about the history of Allah. With puzzled looks, Nobody heard of him, even when we used the names The Father or Clarence 13X. Nobody in the vicinity of the building or anyone entering or exiting the building had no idea who we were referring to. And this was both young and old people. Brother Clarence joined the United States Army at age 23 in 1952. He fought in the Korean War and was a war hero who performed many heroic acts on the battlefield. When he returned home, he learned that his wife Dora had joined the Nation of Islam at Harlem's Mosque No. 7 in New York City. Mosque No. 7 was a walking distance from the housing projects that the couple lived in, then called the Foster Projects. The apartment building Clarence and Dora lived in was at 21 West 112th Street. When we entered the building, there was a strange vibe in the atmosphere. You couldn't help but think about the old news accounts of the brutal assassination. The actual shooting took place inside the building's lobby, close to the elevator. Clarence and Dora's apartment was located on the 5th floor. We kept thinking about the people we approached that couldn't or wouldn't tell us a thing about this widely publicized murder that took place in the very area that people were living in. We also foolishly thought that a memorial or plaque would be visible, informing the occupants what had taken place decades ago. But in all honesty, we must ask ourselves, do we know what took place in the house or building that we now live in? What went down decades ago? It's our own responsibility to document our story, or leave it up to others to put in their story, their history. It must have been extremely hard for Sister Dora to remain in that building up until her passing.
Clarence 37X Smith Joers, a member of the Harlem organization called the Mau Mau, was shot and killed today in New York City by unknown assassins. The leader of the Mau Maus, Charles 37X Kenyatta, was shot and seriously wounded in New York City last Saturday. For the past 2 years, the Mau Maus have worked with Mayor John Lindsay on problems of the slums, and they reportedly have helped to fight the traffic in drugs. Howard and I will be back with more news in a moment.
Queen Dora 3X Smith, January 6, 1931 to May 1st, 2014. Rest in power. To our beloved family, nation, and friends, we regretfully inform everyone of the passing of our beloved Queen Mother Dora 3X Smith, the loving wife of the late Father Allah, the Honorable Clarence 13X Smith, and loving matriarch to her immediate and extended family and her community. She is loved, revered, and respected as a pioneer for the Nation of Islam and the 5% nation of gods and earths, and loved and respected by many people and the youth that she neutered and mentored and cared for throughout most of her life. And most of all, she loved all of us. We thank Allah for her. Our condolences to her family, the 5% nation, the Nation of Islam, her community, and all of the lives that she impacted directly and indirectly during her physical sojourn among us. Thank you for your love and support during this time. Please add to the memorial page we made in her honor. We are raising funds for her funeral. Brother Puddin', Clarence 13X, the father, also known as Allah, can't be separated from the Malcolm X story, and vice versa. How and when did you personally get interested in Minister Malcolm X?
Basically in junior high school, we used to have these things where we went to the library at some point during our school session day, and everybody would pick out books, and I picked out a couple of books on history, slavery, because I saw roots. And I took out a book about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and I read them. And after reading books about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, I became interested in my history, who I am, where I came from. And I came on Malcolm. And I read the story of Malcolm and how he came from a low person and was able to, through Islam, to able to reinvent himself and change himself. So I felt like if Malcolm could change, then anybody could change. So when I seen that caused me to look inward to myself, and I started to see how can I make myself better. And one thing about Malcolm, where he stressed self-defense, being able to defend yourself, taking the responsibility for being a man. If you make a baby, take care of that baby. If you're a man, if you see someone being mistreated, don't just be quiet, say something. So that's what I noticed about Malcolm, and it really caused me to admire him very strongly. So junior high school, I started to stop eating pork because I read where Malcolm didn't eat pork and Muslims didn't eat pork. So I started to change my diet. I started to strengthen myself, so I started to take martial arts and practice. Overall, once I read about Malcolm, I started to take life more seriously, and I began to embrace my manhood, my young manhood, more stronger after seeing him and knowing what he lived for and what he died for.
Hip-hop music originated in the borough of the Bronx, New York City, by African Americans in the 1970s. Its main message in the beginning spoke of anti-drugs and anti-violence that was prevalent in the black community. The genre of music was embraced with pride because it was unifying, and it was often played in street block parties. The list of pioneers who excelled in hip-hop were many spoken word artists, such as the Last Poets, the Watts Prophets, and Gil Scott-Heron, who must be credited. And many of the new younger artists who emerged in the 1970s followed in that positive direction of the aforementioned artists. Unfortunately, as time went on, the message of black unity began to fade out. Commercialization took everything in a whole new direction. The early positive message had turned into bravado about the ownership of material things. And from there, it all went downhill fast. And Gil Scott-Heron was accurate when he spoke on the cut Message to the Messengers from the LP Spirits. If you're going to be teaching folks, be sure you know what you're saying. Be sure you know the real deal about past situations. And you ain't just repeating what you heard on a local TV station. You can't talk respect on every other song. On one song, she's your African queen, and on the next, she's a joke to you. 4-letter words or 4-syllable words won't make you a poet. It will only magnify how shallow you are and let everybody know it. Gone are the days when we look forward to passing one another on the street and recognizing the brotherliness in the air. Gone are the days when lifting up an arm at chest level with a tight and balled up fist was a rites of passage. The unspoken words, black power and right on. We are safe for one another. Seems like all that positiveness has been vacuum sucked dry out of everyone. Where did peace go? Come on, rappers. It's time to restore those lyrics of unity and the call for freedom. It's time to recite those unifying lines like when it all first started in the Bronx, New York, and then spread throughout the planet. Everybody's getting their act together while we selectively choose to stay behind. It's time to recall the message of our ancestors like Brother Malcolm, who said it straight and raw.
They attacked the victim. And then the criminals who attacked the victim accused the victim of attacking him. Yes, this is American justice. Yes, that's right. This is American democracy. Yes, and those of you who are familiar with it know that in America, democracy is hypocrisy. Right. Now, if I'm wrong, put me in jail. But if you can't prove that a democracy is not hypocrisy, then don't put your hands on me. Democracy is hypocrisy. If democracy means freedom, why aren't our people free? If democracy means justice, why don't we have justice? If democracy means equality, why don't we have equality? 20 million black people in this country have been like boys in the white man's house. He even calls us boys. Don't care how big you get, he calls you boy. You can be a professor. To him, you're just another boy. I heard him calling Ralph Bunch. Well, he's a good old boy. Who are you? You don't know. Don't tell me Negro. That's nothing. What were you before the white man named you a Negro? And where were you? And what did you have? What was yours? What language did you speak then? What was your name? It couldn't have been Smith or Jones or Bunch or Powell. That wasn't your name. They don't have those kind of names where you and I came from. No, what was your name? And why don't you now know what your name was then? Where did it go? Where did you lose it? Who took it? And how did he take it? What tongue did you speak? How did the man take your tongue? Where is your history? How did the man wipe out your history? What did the man do to make you as dumb as you are right now? And if we can't do it, we should hush our mouth. If you can't do for yourself what the white man is doing for himself, don't say you're equal with the white man. If you can't set up a factory like he sets up a factory, don't talk that old equality talk.
You know, what is it? What was it that drove Malcolm? You know, and not only what was it that drove Malcolm to strive to use that platform to realize the promise of the Nation of Islam, but how come everybody, doesn't, aspire to do the same thing?
That's a good question. Brother Omar mentioned that, how unique they were. Muhammad Ali was a unique person. He was not literally sound, Minister Malcolm was well read. So he understood instructions. So you couldn't tell Minister Malcolm, this is what we have to accomplish. Because he set his own goals. You would tell Minister Malcolm, look, in a meeting, we got to do this. We got to repaint this whole building, to make it look better, more appealing for people. Minister Malcolm's mind was saying, we got to build something. We got to build our own so they can see that. Because you'll see fresh paint and you'll see a clean building and that wears off. But every time you go past a new building that you built with your hands, it's a whole brand new ball game. So Minister Malcolm thought out of the box. And keep in mind that he came into the nation in the 60s where black men and women were literally ignorant. We were ignorant and we were illiterate. And we only knew the simple ABCs of life. Minister Malcolm turned the page. He said, look, it's more to this than the alphabet. So he started going things the whole way through the alphabet. He did so much for people. And he knew that if he could get the nation situated, he could win the world. Not just the United States of America, not just black people, but the world. He knew that. He knew that, and that was his goal. But a lot of the rank and file brothers didn't have the desire to do the things that Minister Malcolm was doing, because in the 60s and 70s, and there's no justification, we were just lazy mentally. So if we have 500 papers to sell, and you got 400 of them, I'll take 100. I'll take 100. I'll do the other 100. But you're doing the work. So even though me selling 100 papers looks good, the work is on the one with the side has the 400 papers. Now what I should have said as a brother was split it in half. Split it in half. But we didn't think like that. We didn't think like that. Whoever was carrying the weight, and listen, Joe Tex was in the mall. And they told Joe Tex he had to stop singing. And that's where he made his money from. Now, Joe Tex been in shootouts with James Brown and all kind of crazy stuff. He's
he's been around. He's done a whole lot of stuff. Period. But they called him Minister Hazi, is what they called Joe Tex. And they told us when Joe Tex came in the mosque that the messenger was talking to him, and he put 5 coins in his hand and told him to hold his hand. And he said the messenger put his hand on top of the hand and turned it over. And when he opened up, it was 5 silver dollars, real silver dollars. And he said that's what made Joe Tex become a Muslim. Of course, I found out 25 years later that was a lie. But that was just some of the stuff that came down from higher up to keep everybody else in check. In check. How many years as a child did you believe in Santa Claus? Or the Tooth Fairy?
Yeah, we always, every time I come up here, I'll take blades of grass and put it in under my seat in my car.
That's happy. That's happy.
I got my favorite copy of the autobiography, the one that has been with me for like 20, 25 years now. I got blades of grass taped in it from here.
You remember that time we went to the house? Did you touch the gate near the house?
Yeah.
I guess you got charged up from that alone.
Yeah.
I should have added a little electric effect to you touching it.
Nah, brother, you remember when we was talking about, this was like it wasn't a serious notion, but we was joking around, like, juicing some of the grass, and didn't,
That's hilarious.
I can imagine that.
In that spirit.
Put some fire on something,
Shit, I'm gonna try that.
We talked about that before.
That's funny.
Wow.
That's humorous.
That's real heavy.
All right, we're back on officially.
Yeah. I'm trying to form this question that I wanted to ask.
Wow.
There's so much I want to ask. I'm trying to frame everything. And I definitely want to get back to the choosing the spiritual life versus, the religious life, or just the haphazard do whatever the hell you want in life.
Yes, sir.
I want to get back to that at some point.
Yes, sir.
2, all right. Let me get this one out while it's fresh. A lot of people try to, basically character assassinate Brother Malcolm.
Correct.
And talking about how he turned on Elijah and turned on the nation.
Right.
When in fact, when he, Malcolm wanted to stay in the nation.
Correct.
He begged to be let back in the nation during the 90-day silencing. And, when he finally realized that he wasn't going to be allowed back into the nation, he, in his Declaration of Independence, he said, I'm still a follower of Elijah Muhammad.
Correct.
I still believe he has the best program.
Correct.
And I'm going to do my best to utilize that program with my independence to push his philosophy.
Right.
Now, there are a lot of people who try to make it sound as if Malcolm X left the nation attacking Elijah Muhammad and attacking the nation.
Yeah.
When, those of us, those who have studied Malcolm's departure from the nation know that Malcolm, it was about 3 months later before Malcolm even uttered anything that could be considered an attack against the nation.
They attacked Minister Malcolm first. Once he started the Muslim mosque, that was an issue. Anybody in that time period that started anything that had anything to do with Islam, any believer that left the nation, they had problems with. They were brothers that left the nation, and they would set up a little shop and have a picture of the messenger in there. They'd tear the windows out, and they caught you, they would straighten you out too. So it was a real bad and wicked time. A lot of people didn't want Minister Malcolm to set up any opposition to what they were doing, not to rival what they were doing, but Minister Malcolm's vision and work was so much bigger than what he was able to do when they had him confined. Because even though he was still confined, he still made giant steps. So once he was outside that containment area, they knew that he could go buck wild. They knew that he could do whatever he wanted to do. And they didn't want that to happen because they didn't want Minister Malcolm to be known world over to be bigger than the Nation of Islam. They didn't want that to happen. And keep this in mind, in the 50s and 60s, and even in the 70s, up until the time the messenger passed, Malcolm X's name was still bigger than Malcolm X. Malcolm X's name was still bigger than Elijah Muhammad. It was still bigger than that. But because of the zealousness within us and believers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, anytime someone said, well, that person is wrong, we went along with it. We never actually sat down and talked to anyone that was put out of the nation on those kind of terms. And they didn't give him 90 days. They never gave him no time. He never had a hearing.
That's right.
He never had a hearing. The only way you get 90 days is that they had to bring you in front of the mosque, brother. Yeah. After a Sunday meeting, most of the time. If they called you in on a Monday for the hearing, you're going to get a whooping. And so just say, look, I can't make it Monday. I'm straight up. Because Monday was FOI night. And if you had to meet in front of the FOI about something you did wrong, you're going to have some problems, or you're going to have some problems. You just put on an extra t-shirt, put some padding and stuff.
Prepare for that beating.
Because, you're going to get a whooping. Then you have to go into the Floyd Patterson. You got to just cover up, and take the beating. But if it was on Sunday, they would have, all the brothers would be there. And you would go in front of the mosque, and they would hear their case, they would read the charges out. And they would ask you, how do you stand? And what do you have to say for yourself? And you would say whatever you had to say. And if what you were saying was true, they had to go on the side of truth. They never called Minister Malcolm a liar, because he never lied about nothing. The whole time he was calling John Fitzgerald Kennedy, he was calling him the Fox. The whole time Kennedy was president, he was the Fox. He was the one that said that John Fitzgerald Kennedy thought about you last. Now he's thinking about you because now to get ready to be the re-election. So now he's giving you more promises. So you're not going to gain anything. He always called him a fox. Always called him a fox. Did he make a statement? He made that statement not one time. He made that statement, 20, 30 times about the chickens coming home to roost. Did he get blown out of proportion? He got blown out of proportion by black folks in the nation, not by white folks. The article was about that big in the newspaper for white folks. That's how big it was. And it was in the New York Times and Washington Post. This article was that big. It didn't have all that spread out stuff like that until the niggers got their hand on it. And then they made it bad. They put the heat on. But they knew that Minister Malcolm, Minister Malcolm was so powerful that if he got his own way, he was going to break up a whole lot of stuff. That hunt money, that's what I call it, hunt money. Because he was giving money to the nation, that was going to stop. That was going to stop right then and there. All that money that the hierarchy was making, the John Ali's and the Abu Rasuls and the Herberts and Elijah Jr., all that money them niggas was riding high on and hog on, that was done. That was done. He was going to cut all that out, because it was not about just them in the mansion. It was about what we can do for people, period. And I need you to keep this in mind too, is that the Nation of Islam didn't start in Chicago, it started in Detroit. But Detroit has been and continues to be the #1 kill city in the United States of America. They're always in the top 3. So there's no power in Detroit. And right behind Detroit is Chicago. So if Chicago is so powerful when it's Farrakhan there in the mansion, why is there so much death, so much murder, so much crime? So much homelessness. Minister Malcolm didn't live like that. He knew you was homeless or hungry. He made sure you had a place to live and something to eat. That's how they're supposed to do. The brothers that were sent to jail for being a part of the assassination team that were innocent, the Nation of Islam never stepped up and took care of their family. There's brothers that I know personally that went to jail because they denied the bail, they denied the armed services. And they went to jail for a nickel. And their family never got anything.
Even Thomas Hager, the one assassin that was caught at the scene.
Right.
Who felt that he was doing his duty.
That's what he felt.
To to assassinate an enemy of the Nation of Islam.
Right.
He wasn't taken
didn't take care of
either. His family. And
Everybody
he
lost
kept his
everything.
mouth shut
Yeah.
until after Elijah Muhammad died, out of a sense of duty.
Right.
You know, he felt to the nation to keep, what was done to Malcolm from the implication being put upon the nation.
Right.
And he wasn't taken care of.
Yeah, I know. And the bad part about that is that, and I mean this in all sincerity, tomorrow was Sunday. If Minister Farrakhan would do his normal, everyday Sunday lecture at Mos Marion, and it's always filmed, it's always streamed somewhere, if he would say that the Nation of Islam owes a lot of gratitude to a lot of people, and if you say, I just need to start with Minister Malcolm X, who was a honorable man, because he was an honorable man. And if he would just admit that the nation has been wrong about a whole lot of stuff, that would give more support to the nation, because he can at least admit that he's wrong about something.
Yeah.
But I don't want him to just admit that he's wrong because he's dying. I want him to admit that he's wrong and then live by it. And then prove it. You have to go back. All these people, all the brothers that was beat down for not selling papers, all the brothers that was put out of the mosque for not selling papers, all the brothers that was put out of the mosque for not giving the proper charity. I'm telling you, you had to give to the number 2 poor charity before you made sure your bills are paid, brother.
Yeah. But let's stop right there and let's examine. Let's unpack some of this.
Yes, sir.
And I agree with you.
Yes, sir.
People have a false notion that someone has to be perfect.
Correct.
In order for them to have validity. And
Right.
I think that the nation wants to keep Elijah Muhammad particularly crystal clear and pure and pristine, and they don't want him to be seen as wrong in any particular way.
That's deep.
And I think that kind of, or the nation in general, not just Elijah Muhammad specifically, but the nation of Islam in general.
Right.
And this is why they go to such lengths to try to put Malcolm's ouster and his demise on him. When he became angry with his teaching, he began to attack. This is when the zealousness of the followers, rank and file, rose up to oppose him.
Right.
But in fact, Malcolm left the nation again declaring that he still was a follower and a believer and a supporter.
Right.
And that went on from early March, up until June, early June, or the second week of June, where they have the famous footage being taken out of, I believe it's in Queens. I believe it's some court in Queens, where Malcolm was summoned to fight for, to keep his house.
Right.
The house that according to him, he said, this house was promised to me.
Right. It was given to him.
It was given to him.
It was given to him.
Correct. And Malcolm tried to hold on to that house until he died.
Correct.
Because he felt that after 12 years of selfless service to the Nation of Islam, this is the only thing tangible that I have left.
Right. And
for
the car.
12 years
and the car. Yeah, they tried to get the car first.
So Malcolm didn't speak out against. There's no footage that can be found of any kind of Malcolm speaking out against the Nation of Islam until 3.5 months had passed.
Right.
Since him leaving, in early, March.
Right.
So it has to be put to bed that Malcolm was the attacker, against the Nation of Islam, which triggered the Nation of Islam turning on him.
Right.
And so I asked the question, brother, this is a question I'd like you to answer.
If I can, brother, because you're heavy. I'm letting you know that right now.
I'm pretty sure you can answer this question, brother. Why is it a fact? Like, and you kind of alluded to it. Why does Elijah Muhammad have to be perfect?
Correct.
In order for us to appreciate Elijah Muhammad for his good,
yes,
and what he helped to bring forth.
Yes.
Why does he have to be perfect, and why does Malcolm have to be the villain?
Right.
In order for us to appreciate both of them.
Right.
And to appreciate what the Nation of Islam provided a foundation for Malcolm to grow into.
Right. Right.
You know, so could you?
Yeah, that's heavy. And I want to say this is that we mentioned before that everybody has faults. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad surely had faults, but it's easier for the nation to point the finger at somebody else to keep the blame off of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So if they can make Minister Malcolm like he's guilty or he's wrong or he's the villain, then he just lost the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Minister Farrakhan made a terrible mistake. Minister Farrakhan had a Savior Day and he invited the wives of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and put them on stage.
Yes.
That was a mistake.
In '93.
That was a mistake, brother.
Revisionist history.
Because that let you know that Malcolm was right.
Yeah.
But people miss that. I mean, you know, they missed that. And because they missed that, it became an issue.
Welcome to 125th Street. Malcolm X has walked this strip many times. And there's the Apollo Theater. The Apollo Theater showcases the greatest show on earth, starring the masters of music and entertainment and the top amateurs. When the performances are great, the crowd will let the performers know. When the performances are bad, the crowd will voice their displeasure. Most duplicated throughout the world is Ralph Cooper's Apollo Amateur Night, started in 1935 and has since been copied by today's American Idol and America's Got Talent, and in the past was the Gong Show. Some of the all-time greatest performances at the Apollo were Screaming Jay Hawkins singing I Put a Spell on You, raising out of a coffin on a stage full of smoke. How about Lorraine Ellison electrifying the audience by rolling her body all over the stage singing her signature song, Stay With Me? Walter Jackson crooning the ladies singing Welcome Home while being on crutches, and the ladies throwing their bras, panties, and stockings on stage at him to show their appreciation. And the same was the case for performances by the Delphonics, Marvin Gaye, and Teddy Pendergrass. As far as great performances at the Apollo Theater, on display was the hardest working man in show business. How about the godfather of soul, James Brown, sliding across the stage and doing splits to his hit tunes such as Cold Sweat, There Was a Time, and Sex Machine, as the Apollo crowds lost their minds seeing him perform. Also seeing him playing drums, organ, and piano during his live sets. By the way, James Brown performed the first dedicated live album, which was perfectly titled Live at the Apollo in 1963. His Live at the Apollo set the standard for live recorded albums. James Brown went on to do 4 recorded Live at the Apollo albums, which included Live at the Apollo, Live at the Apollo 2, Revolution of the Mind, and Live at the Apollo in 1994. The best live comedy album at the Apollo was titled Wash Your Ass by legendary comedian Red Fox. The comedian was a big influence on Malcolm X. Red Fox told Malcolm X, "Don't be so serious when making speeches. Just throw a little humor in the speeches. Therefore, your audience will listen more carefully the next time you make your point." Because of Red Fox's advice, Malcolm X speeches and lectures became priceless, with knowledge and wisdom scattered with some humor. Some of the other showcases at the Apollo in the past were The Sound of Young America, which was Motown, and their legendary artists. Also, the Queen of Soul passed this way before. Some of the greatest and legendary jazz artists and big bands also performed at the Greatest Theater. Thank you, Guy Fisher, for saving the Apollo Theater from closing for good in 1977. He became the first black man to own and operate the Apollo Theater. Now that was black empowerment. He brought fun back to the Apollo and the community, even though he was a street hustler. No politician or congressman even tried to save the Apollo. That's why I'd rather vote for a gangster than a politician anytime, because a gangster always gets shit done for the people. Today, the Apollo Theater is owned by the Apollo Theater Foundation, a not-for-profit organization to manage, fund, and program the Apollo Theater. To the present and future, with Scientology marking its territory like a dog on 125th Street, thanks to all the sellouts for this one. I'm wondering, would the Apollo Theater return to its glory days and years in this new gentrified Harlem? Just a thought. Peace.